This is how it begins, or so they say. With a gentle wind drifting through wide-open windows, muffled laughter and footsteps fading behind empty hallways, and the light kiss of the afternoon sun. Soon there will be a call, a crossing of thresholds into the unknown. Maybe we are off to some grand adventure, or diving into another gripping mystery. One can't really tell. For all I know, a hero might even come sweep me off my feet if I'm lucky.
That's not exactly a bad thing when you think about it.
But this is far from one, isn't it? A riveting tale, that is. The mild breeze, the faint murmurs, the warm rays painting every nook and cranny a fiery hue. They are all as real as they can get. As much as I want to write a little tale out of all this, I'm far from someone who can. Fleeting fancies, that's what these are. Merely passing through to occupy an idle mind, while waiting for another busy workday to end. Then again, maybe another life, I am one. Who knows? But at present, what I have and what I've chosen to be, well,
I won't last years here if I find teaching rowdy adolescents a tedious job, will I?
admittedly, the whole affair isn't exactly as grand or exciting as I had imagined as a child. If I weren't so stubborn or too passionate about the whole idea, I probably would have quit a long time ago. But it's always the kids that make it worthwhile, isn't it? As if in agreement, as soon as my pen slides into a neat circle against the papers I'm grading, the final bell rings. And like a dam that is opened, students begin piling out into the hallway soon after. Before we continue, we have a new profile, and that would be Rebecca. April 1st. Oh, wow. She's an April Fool's baby. She's 19. She's an Aries. She's 5'5", average height. She's a history teacher. She's Scottish. She's atheist, but was raised Kirk. She's got a master's degree in education and major in European history. She loves stogies, reading in the dark, going to the gym, cycling and jogging, lacrosse, and lesson plans. Oh, she looks so happy in that picture. Am I right? Although of Scottish descent, she grew up in Luxembourg and even went to school in St. Goretti. Her parents were professors of European history and Southeast Asian history at Luxembourg University. They were often busy, and that forced Rebecca to be independent early on. Surrounded by books and instilled with a love for learning, she was a star pupil and was often called a teacher's pet for it. Her passion for academics led to a career in the industry was to be expected of her. She came out of her shell in her high school years and started becoming the Spitfire she is now. Before then, Ashton was her only friend, though she found him aggravating at first. Independent and used to taking care of others, it was no surprise when she helped out the young foreigner who moved in next door. Nice. For a short minute, I let the noise fill my ears, let my mind wander to a place far removed from all the hubbub. Solitary moments like this have come far and few between lately. Even my own home hasn't been as quiet as I usually prefer. Though in hindsight, the entire place hasn't been the same either since Isabella moved in next door. And if her fussing over a minor cold last week tells anything, I might as well throw any idea of solitude up the nearest balcony so long as she lives nearby. At the memory, my eyes automatically shift over to the bottle sitting at the edge of my desk. A chuckle escapes from me as I reach for it.
A little ball of energy and enthusiasm. That big baby.
Mother hen, she calls me. And then says and does the same thing right after. It's not that I'm unused to being on the receiving end of other people's worries, or I feel any sort of apprehension over her fretting. If I am to be completely honest, it's actually amusing how someone can be childlike one minute, then act like a responsible adult the next. But there's a dissonance there, both in her actions and words. Although she may not look like it, may not say anything, may not lose her cheer, one way or another, I know these troubles have weighed down on her lately. Her face says it all, that big numpty. If she thinks I won't notice, she's got another thing coming for her. That's how she's always been. I do understand that part, loud and clear. It's just that I'd really rather not pass another burden on to her.
Or become one myself.
Aren't I supposed to be the one taking care of them? Though I guess that's simply one of those things people eventually grow away from, once you've all started leading different lives. Not completely different, I hope. Somehow, though, that thought makes me feel uneasy. Thankfully, before stranger ideas can take root in my head, a faint buzzing comes from my bag, cutting through the rest of my thoughts. A small frown forms on my lips when the screen lights up and it's an unknown number. For a long second, my thumb hovers over the answer button. Even the voice that responds once I do accept the call is wholly unfamiliar.
Hello?
Oh, goodness. Finally, it connects. Hello? Is this Miss Gales? Rebecca Gales?
Yes, speaking. Who is this?
Oh, sorry. Rose Cooper. Briar Realty Corporation.
So this is before she dies, okay.
Briar Realty?
My frown deepens as I straighten from my chair. Something in her tone, despite sounding remarkably friendly and light, doesn't sit quite well with me. The rigid pause that follows doesn't help ease the tension that has suddenly descended either. Oh, you know what? This is probably when Rose called her because Isabella hit her head and was acting strange.
Miss Cooper?
Yes. Things are a bit busy on my end. I apologize. I'm not certain if Isabella has mentioned anything before, but we're working together on a property at the moment, and...
The Ermengarde Mansion, yes. She said something about that earlier. Is there a problem?
This is about Isabella, actually.
She wastes no time relaying everything. The details she provides are admittedly a bit vague, but enough for me to get a gist of what happened. It isn't the bad sort I'm expecting, though still worried. Especially with words panic attack and pale looking a bit sickly woven together in one foreboding sentence. But as quickly as it surfaces, I stop down on the urge to demand answers right then and there. Now isn't the proper time for useless questions. I'll find out soon enough, regardless. To Miss Cooper's credit, she neither hesitates nor falters all throughout. There's some sort of comfort in knowing Isabella has someone like her to guide her, though not as much as I would have liked. After all, this is Isabella we're talking about. What are the chances she just said a bunch of excuses so she won't get sent home? High. Very high. Oh, she is so going to hear it this time.
You were listed as one of her emergency contacts, so I thought it'd be best you know about this.
How is she? Is she doing okay?
I had her take a break for now, but honestly, I'd feel better if someone were to pick her up and take her home for some rest. Anthem's a fair distance from Luxbourne. I really don't want her going off on her own. I'd do it myself, but you know how it is today. Big day. People everywhere until the open house ends. I'm really sorry to ask this of you, Miss Gales. I know you're busy.
Oh, no, it's all good. I was just about to leave from work. I hope to leave early today anyway. A few minutes ahead wouldn't hurt. I can be there in a few, 30, 40 minutes tops. Is that all right?
More than fine, Miss Gales, thank you. We're supposed to be here until... Oh, excuse me. One moment, please. Yes, ma'am.
The faint hum of conversation echoes from her end. It sounds as though the place is buzzing with more people than you'll expect from a regular open house. I was skeptical at first. The house is old, not to mention its inconvenient location in Luxborn's outskirts. Who wants to live in a place almost an hour's drive away from the comforts of a city? But from what little I can hear, it appears Isabella has every right to be optimistic about the sale. If I didn't understand why she was so adamant refusing my offer for help before, I think I do now. To some degree.
We'll be resuming the tour soon. Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. I really need to get this thing going. Lord knows how I'll salvage the situation here. It shouldn't be anything complicated, but still, clients. It can be difficult when they want to be. Anyway, just look for me when you get here, alright? I shouldn't be too hard to miss.
No problem. Thanks for letting me know about this. Just make sure Isabella stays put, please. Heaven knows how stubborn that girl can be.
Oh, believe me, I know. Don't worry about it. I'll have a few of our staff keep an eye on her for me until you get here.
That's all I'm asking. I appreciate it.
The whole thing ends up on a surprisingly pleasant note. If only the same can be said for the news she brought. I allow a brief moment to pass to ease whatever tension has latched itself firmly to my nerves. But no matter how much I wish for it, my mind stubbornly refuses to do so. My hands are unsteady against the papers I pretend to arrange after. Lucid thoughts, every single ounce of it grimmer than the others, grows with each passing second I linger. Something about this whole thing, along with the sudden unease and nagging worry, screams off. Wrong. This isn't the riveting tale I've hoped to step into today. Even on a rush, getting everything in order before leaving takes a good quarter hour. By the time I make it out of the classroom, the commotion has already died down, dwindling to mere echoes and distant laughter. From the nearby room, melodies from a rehearsing band drips freely into the air, filling the almost empty hallway with their warm, lively tunes. Any other day, I'll stop, bask in the music, and enjoy what little peace it brings. Not today, however. My steps are brisk and sure as I march to Edward's Hall's exit. The sooner I confirm Isabella's okay, the sooner I can shake off this niggling feeling. For one reason or another, that single call of all possible things has thrown everything off kilter. I'd rather this be over with as quickly as possible. So much that I nearly barrel over a student in my haste. Though perhaps it's really the other way around. When I look down, a set of eyes bright and hopeful stare right back at me. Her arms are wrapped around my waist like a vice, and at my attention, a grin spreads over her face.
Buenas tardes, Miss Pink.
Hello, Kylie. You know, you aren't supposed to run into people like that.
Sorry, Miss Pink.
She loosens her hold on me, but not a hint of guilt or regret appears on her. If anything, it seems the remark only amused her. A smile appears on my face before I can help it, matching the one on her own.
Just remember not to do it again, all right? You could get hurt.
You sound like my mama when she's scolding Rowan, Miss Pink.
I'm sure your mama only means well. I know she'll be worried sick if one of you were to get hurt. Where's your brother anyway? Aren't you two supposed to be heading home now?
Rowan said he's got some stuff he needs to do before we go. I think he's taking too long. But he promised to buy me jelly babies today if I keep what he's doing a secret from Mama and Papa.
Oh?
Any chance you'll tell Miss Pink about it?
She shakes her head, both of her hands going to her mouth as if to keep the precious secret from spilling out.
I made a promise. He said it's for Tia Luke.
Oh, something like a gift?
Like a deal. Tio promised to take him somewhere cool when he's old enough. Rowan's gonna prove he's a grown-up.
Okay, yeah. This Kylie is the same Kylie that is related to Luke. To Luke Wright, rather. Yep, so that suspicion confirmed. Laughter slips free from my lips. The teacher in me wants to give whoever this Tio is a reprimand for bringing about this kind of behavior in children. But if both Suarez kids are so fond of him, there shouldn't be anything to worry about, yes? At any rate, they're nothing but well-behaved. Both Kylie and her brother. Rowan, the eldest, may have an occasional odd streak in and out of class, but their parents taught them well. I see no reason to cast any suspicion of bad behavior on them.
As long as it isn't anything dangerous, all right?
It's not. Cross my heart. My drawings are a lot prettier than what he's doing anyway. Tio said so. Do you want to see? I drew one earlier at class.
Is that why you're here?
Not really. I was gonna show it to my friend first. But since it's you, I'm sure she wouldn't mind if you see it before she does.
Oh no. I can't stay right now, Kylie.
Her face falls immediately after the words are out. A small part of me feels responsible for that crestfallen look, but as much as I want to stay a little longer, there's another place I need to be right now. And frankly, another child to look after. Taking both of her hands, I kneel in front of her and muster the most rueful smile I can give. At her age, I'm quite sure she already understands what I'm about to say before they're even out. But remarkably, she doesn't look away or pout as I'm explaining to her.
I'm sorry. You know what? Rowan has a class with me on Monday around this time. Why don't you drop by again next week? After class? I'll even make sure to wait for you. It's just that I absolutely must leave now. My friend had an accident earlier, and I'm the only one she has here.
What about her mama and papa?
Her family lives really far from here, I'm afraid. Do you remember where Asia is? The southeast part? That's where they are.
Her eyes immediately light up at my question. Just like that, I know I've earned the girl's forgiveness.
Oh, just like Takako.
Who?
My friend. She said she used to live there, only just a little higher than southeast. But she hasn't come home in a long time, so she doesn't remember much about it anymore. Melody says it's weird I talked to her, but I think she's just shy. They could be good friends too. Don't you think so, Miss Pink?
I do, in fact.
Maybe if you introduce them properly, they will be.
That's what I think. Takako's just lonely. If she makes more friends, she won't be anymore. Is your friend like that too?
A little, possibly. To be honest, sometimes I can't tell with her.
After all, Isabella has always been the kind to hold a smile, even when things have taken a turn for the worse. 5 years, and one would think it's enough time to know a person. But when you consider it, come to think of it, all these years, I've never, not even once, seen her cry. Not over a trivial matter, or even when things were rough.
Okay, you can go to her. I'll just show you my drawing next time.
Thank you. Remind me to buy you a huge glass of parfait, all right?
No, I'll get a stomachache. Takako says so. A small one is okay.
I'll remember that. Say hi to your friend for me.
I will. I'm sure she'd love to meet you too. See you, Miss Pink.
I'll see you later, Kylie.
London Bridge is falling down, falling down,
Doesn't look back
falling
or
down.
wait for any
London
sort of
Bridge
goodbye
is
from me.
falling down, my
With a song and an
fair
extra spring
lady.
in her step, she bounds across the corridor with as much spirit only a child her age can have. As if the conversation has never taken any downhill turn for her at all. As if there isn't a single thing to worry about in the world. Not long after, she disappears behind a door, leaving behind strains of old familiar rhyme lingering in the air. Carefree, unbidden, untroubled moments like this, I envy her. And as I resume my hurried pace, a tiny whisper at the back of my mind wishes the same could be said of myself and my own worries. Luxbourne may be a small city, but it's no stranger to hellish rush hour traffic. Hang on. 21st? while looking for her... Okay, we got that part already. Yep. Rebecca Gales received a phone call from Rose Cooper after class asking her to pick up Isabella Santos from the Ermengarde Mansion. On her way out of the school, an excited Kylie Suarez stops her favorite teacher from leaving. Yep, we got that already. But surprisingly, getting out of the city today proves more of a breeze than a hassle. A relief, considering how none of my calls to Isabella have made it through. Either the reception's really bad over there, or she's ignoring them on purpose. Both does nothing to ease the disquiet in me. The rest of my drive passes without much incident as soon as I'm out the busy streets. In less than 30 minutes, the mansion looms ahead of me. For all the fuss Isabella made about the house, it remains a thing of beauty. Unlike Luxbourne, the estate in the nearby Anselm village stand as its complete opposite. Living and breathing the songs of the old, whispers of a once booming haven lingering in the air. Contemporary conveniences aside, it's a place I'm glad modernization hasn't wholly touched.
It's just a shame the locals know more of the silly hearsay than the history itself. If I could only knock some sense into these people.
Sadly, complaining is all I can afford to do. As much as I want to give them a piece of my mind, it isn't why I'm here. I don't think these rich types will appreciate getting a lecture from me either. I have as much business with them as they have with me. With a heavy sigh, I give myself one last second to take in the scenery before heading up the main entrance. Most of the guests are already heading out. Though some still linger, it's mainly just to take photos of the house's facade or of various rooms. I pause for a moment, scanning the small crowd gathered at the foyer, looking for any sign of that familiar ponytail among the sea of hats and heads.
No sign of her.
No sign of the other staff or Miss Cooper either. I can certainly look for Isabella on my own, but in a place this big? I'd be lucky if I didn't end up lost or find her before we need to meet with Zachary and Ash tonight. Sighing, I reach for my mobile and redial her number, the gesture familiar now after so many attempts earlier. If she doesn't answer, I can still try contacting Miss Cooper. I just hope the network reception will cooperate this time. This side of the country has never been popular with the tech-savvy after all. To my relief, it only took 3 unsuccessful tries. At the 4th one, right as it's about to switch to another intercept message, the line finally picks up. The line finally rings. Silence falls while I wait for her to pick up, the ringing going far too long for my tastes. By now, most of the visitors have already cleared out. All I have for company are the faint murmurs and an eerie calmness left in their wake. A sudden hush settles and gives way to noises louder than they're ever meant to be. Doors creaking and slamming shut in some distant part of the mansion, floorboards groaning under the sheer weight of the house's history. In the now empty hall, they all reverberate with special clarity against the walls. Like this, those old stories seem to almost have a ring of truth to it. I don't get to stray far into that ugly line of thought, however. Not a second later, a click sounds from the other end.
Hello? Isabella?
Oh.
Miss Cooper called earlier and...
Wait, hold up. Rebecca hasn't seen the note yet. This is weird. Then again, this happened to Isabella as well. Maybe it has more to do with the house than it does the note. That's interesting.
Isabella? Belle? Are you alright?
Without any warning, the call gets cut off. Busy notes blare sharply against the heavy silence. But above the noise cutting through the muted air remains the faint cries of a woman from beyond the foyer. My hand falls to my side as I cast a wary look around, waiting for someone to come running. Surely I can't be the only one hearing this. There must still be some staff hanging around, checking things out. But no one does. Not even when her sounds turn more frantic and anguished.
Excuse me? Hello? Who's there? Isabella? Isabella? Is that you?
No answer. Growing anxious, I amble over where her cries come from, each step slow and cautious, towards a door on the other end of the room. While I'm far from someone who readily gives into fear or stories lacking factual basis, the vague, restless feeling I had earlier immediately returns to me. And despite myself, my heart begins to race and my breathing quickens.
Belle? Belle, it's me. Miss Cooper called. Is everything okay?
Abruptly, all of it stops. Oh boy. My whole body tenses, mouth dragging in a ragged breath, ears straining for any other sound yet to come from the other side. But nothing follows. Instead, the quiet only lends itself to the heavy tension in the air, as if every small movement will disturb the fragile stillness hanging in the room. I wait for another second. Then, with a caution, I reach for the knob. My fingers barely graze the brass handle when a hand falls on my shoulder.
Excuse me, ma'am? I am so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you.
Oh my god, thank you, Rose. You saved her. You saved her.
It's
Still reeling, my gaze shifts back to the door, as if any second now the cries will start again, or whoever's inside will burst out of the room. But I don't get to dwell on these. The woman's worried voice breaks through the haze in my mind again, oddly soothing in the thick of my unease. Even if the concerned look comes from a total stranger, finally being in the company of someone else is somehow comforting.
Ma'am? Are you okay?
Oh, no, I'm fine. This is probably just some cold.
Do you need to sit down?
No need. I'm actually looking for a friend.
I wave the mobile in front of her, like the gesture alone explains everything. Vaguely, I note my tight grip on it, and quickly slip it into my pocket before she notices. She doesn't need to know.
Well, I'm not really sure if your friend would still be here. We're actually about to close the open house in a few minutes, ma'am.
No worries. She's not a guest here. She works for Briar Realty. Miss Cooper called me earlier. In fact, I'm also looking for her.
Recognition flashes in her eyes, and her worried expression dissolves into a smile at once. It's all I need to know that I don't have to look elsewhere or venture deeper into the mansion on my own. In some way, I'm not too keen on the latter right now.
Oh, Miss Rebecca Gales, is it?
Yes. Sorry if I'm a bit late.
It's not a problem. I was busy with the open house and a few clients anyway. It's actually a good thing you came when you did. Let's see. Isabella should be here somewhere.
Okay.
I told her to stay put earlier. That girl never listened.
Yep. She and Ashton just booked it and didn't even tell her.
Rose? Rosie? May I have a minute? There's just this one little thing before we go.
Miss Cooper's head immediately snaps up at the voice. In a blink, a different kind of smile spreads on her face. A smile still, friendly even, but the kind given mainly for the sake of pleasing other people rather than making friends.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be there in a few.
It's an impressive thing, to say the least. That level of professionalism. I suppose working years in this kind of business trains you enough to be able to pull that off without batting an eye. It certainly didn't seem to have rubbed off on Isabella, though.
Sorry, could you give me a second? I have to take care of this.
Don't worry about it. I understand. I can wait a few more minutes. Clients, right?
You won't hear anything from me. Priorities, you know. But if you want, you can stay at the parlor in the meantime. I think we have a few refreshments left.
No, thank you. I'm going out with a few friends after this. Isabella's supposed to join us too. But that depends on how she's doing, of course.
All right, this won't be long, I promise.
She throws me an apologetic look before sauntering over to the small group gathered at the entrance. A couple? Or siblings? And another woman, probably their secretary. Either way, they look no different from the other guests. All three of them primly dressed, albeit in a manner significantly simpler than the others. No frills or extravagance of any form. But their gestures and movements alone speak volumes of their ingrained lifestyle. In their presence, I do what I can to appear conspicuous on my side of the foyer. Oh, notice around him, there's that shadow still. That's interesting. Maybe accepting Mrs. Cooper's offer would have been a much better choice than standing around awkwardly and gaping at them. All while also attempting my best not to listen in on the conversation. Although that one proves more difficult with how enthusiastic the blonde woman is. Her voice easily echoes through the walls with only the 5 of us here. Pretty soon I find myself being drawn into their talks without meaning to.
Tomorrow? First thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning, ma'am.
The mundane talk isn't what catches my attention, however.
Very well. We'll have our lawyers prepare everything as soon as possible. Let's make this whole thing easier for everyone, shall we? Just let me know if there's anything you need from me. You know how to contact me, yes?
Got your mobile number saved here already.
Good. It's just a matter of time, then.
It's a brief moment. A fleeting shift of my eye.
Monday for us, Marianne.
As long as you're positive, we won't be having any problems by that time. You can count on my team.
You worry too much. Let me handle those things. Do be thrilled, though. I imagine it's not every day you get projects like this,
And the instant I turn my gaze on him, I see it.
Oh, I'm certain Mint's ecstatic, Buttercup. Aren't you, Marianne? You know, we could all celebrate this with a few drinks. Why don't we? In fact, there's this really excellent Irish pub I visited a few days ago.
Oh, what a dick. Looming. Hovering over his shoulders. Drawn to him like a moth to a flame. A dark blur. Yep. Rebecca seems to be the first person who noticed it. I remember seeing it during Hannah's chapter, but it's definitely pronounced here too. No. A shadow.
I think I'll pass on that, sir. I have more important matters to attend to.
Darling, your liver. You already had a glass today, and apparently a few days ago as well.
Wow.
How many times do we have to remind you? Doctor's orders, remember?
The voices seem a little tinny right now. I don't know if that has to do with the actual game, or if it's my audio. I'm hoping that nothing's wrong.
What a shame. You never let me do anything fun.
But as I try to make sense of it, a heavy feeling descends over my whole body. It happens without warning, forcing me to close my eyes. The sensation creeps to every part of me, crawling under my skin and draining me little by little of any strength. Okay, so it's in the game. Okay, good. We're good. My audio is perfect. Or at least as good as it's going to be, rather. Before I know it, my hand is gripping the nearby door for support. Sudden nausea drowns out their voices and what little sound there is. All except for the whispers and laughters. Judging. Mocking. Taunting. Muffled, inaudible words bearing down on me like a death sentence. They wrap around my neck and limbs, binds tightening with every syllable, every utterance. And with every draw of breath I take, they drag me down slowly, almost painfully, into a bottomless abyss. On. And on. And on. till the sound turns into mere distant echoes. Until suddenly, it shatters.
Well, what are we waiting for? Are we done here?
Ah, the shadow is now gone. His voice rips through the fog like a sharp blade, and my eyes snap open. When I look to them again, it's gone.
Just a second, darling. Send my regards to Isabel, please. Poor girl. Please let her know she doesn't have to worry and tell her to get some rest. Anyway, we're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Likewise, ma'am.
No shadows or dark clouds. Only amicable smiles and cordial handshakes. The usual pleasantries as Miss Cooper leads them out of the mansion like a graceful host. None of the group seems to have noticed it. And even as I force my breathing to calm down, keep my eyes training on their backs, and wait for something to happen, it doesn't come back. She returns a moment later. Gently, she closes the great door behind her. But there's a smile on her lips and an extra skip to her step when she walks back to me. Whatever she was discussing with the group had put her in a good mood. Even she appears to have not noticed anything odd. Was I just seeing things?
Glad that was over. It's been a long day. I thought for sure we were going to... Hey, are you sure you're doing okay? You look a bit green.
It's all good. I'm actually still recovering from a cold. Weather's been crazy lately.
That must be it. The weather, the stupid cold, and the friendly warnings I'm too stubborn to listen to. As much as I hate to admit it, Isabella's right. I was and still am a little feverish when she visited me at the school this morning. The medicine helped, of course, but only some. Although it's not like I can't function. I did get better after lunch, and I was able to go through my schedule like the usual. Now I'm not so sure. However, I can't keep acting like I've seen some sort of apparition when it's anything but. I simply must have listened too many times to Isabella last week. My fever-muddled mind has started to confuse things. If this doesn't let up, I just need another visit to my doctor, plain and simple. Though I do hope it won't get worse. We did promise to watch Zachary's film together.
I know what you mean. I've been complaining to Isabel. It doesn't seem to affect her much, though. Must be because she grew up in the tropics. Anyway, shall we? She's probably hanging out with the rest of the catering staff.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised she's there. She eats like 10 hungry men when she isn't feeling well. Lead the way.
With a small nod, she gestures for me to follow. I do so without much thought, finally putting everything in the back of my mind. The entire visit took a whole 24 minutes, and my trip to the mansion, as it turns out, is a useless endeavor in itself. Okay, let's take a look. While waiting at the mansion, Rebecca overheard a brief conversation between the Wright couple, their interior designer, and estate agent, Rose Cooper. It was discovered afterwards that Isabella had already left a few hours ago. Yeah, I remember that. Isabella's no longer there, left shortly before I arrived. Or at least that's what the few staff who saw her assumed. None of them knew where she went, but I can take a few guesses. There are only a number of places in Luxbourne she frequents, and, well, she's never been the complex kind. It doesn't really take a genius to figure it out. Still, it's odd she left on her own. She could have at least waited for Miss Cooper. It would have saved her having to pay the cab's fare twice today.
And right after she was told to stay put! I mean, who does that?
Isabella, apparently.
Oh, sod off! You don't own the road!
Nice. In the end, all Miss Cooper could give me were a string of apologies for my trouble, and a request to let her know when I find Isabella. The whole affair didn't even last long. I probably spent more time traveling back and forth. Soon enough, I'm weaving my way back to downtown Luxborn, worried sick, and on top of that, maybe a little annoyed. Whether at the unexpected turn of events or at Isabella herself, I'd rather not think about it for now. Not when I'm already running late for Zachary's film. Besides, I'm perfectly sure that's where I'll find her. As one would expect, people are already gathered at the meeting house when I get there. The small avenue where it's located has been closed off early from any passing traffic to make way for the avid moviegoers who are sure to crowd the venue. I have to park almost a street away and walk the remaining distance because of it. Looking for them has taken a while in a crowd this big, but I eventually spot them near the entrance. Thanks to Zachary, mostly. And like I've surmised, Isabella's with them.
I knew it.
Wasting no time, I march over to their little group. Words filled with concern tumble out of my mouth before I can stop myself.
Isabella! Oh, thank goodness! Becca, you're just in time.
An odd expression crosses her face as I hold it with both hands, but I ignore it in favor of getting a good look at her, forcing her to keep still and fix her gaze at me.
Becca, you're squishing my face. How are you? Are you all right? Why wouldn't I be?
There doesn't seem to be any visible injury, nor does she appear to be in any pain. Apart from her confused frown at my questions, she looked pretty much like how she would any other day. Even so, you can't really tell those things with her at first glance. The last time she got sick, she never bothered to call anyone, even me, who lives right next door. If I hadn't checked on her then, she probably would have died on her bed, with the rest of us none the wiser. It's one thing we laugh about now, but moments like those also teach you something about a person. If anything, it has given me more reason to constantly worry about her. And the moment a familiar name comes up, I know my concerns right now aren't completely baseless.
Rose called me earlier.
Her expression swiftly changes, and gently as she can, Isabella pushes my hands away. Yet even before she says anything, I already have a hunch how this whole thing will play out.
Oh, no, everything's good. Rose covered for me at work today. That's not what I'm talking about. How's your head?
And then and there, the whole conversation goes down as I've imagined. She dodges my hand when I reach for the back of her head, intending to check the said injury myself. Even makes a show of hiding behind Zachary just to avoid me. Instantly, what's supposed to be a simple inquiry dissolves into a shameless game of tag. Shouting and chasing, like none of us can be bothered to act like the full grown-ups we're all supposed to be. Including Ashton. I won't put it past Isabella, but Ash? Out of everyone? In fact, if that stupid smirk on his face tells me anything, he finds this whole mess amusing. Oh, for the love of...
Isabella, this isn't a laughing matter.
She did look pale when I saw her.
Wow, thanks a lot, Ashton, you traitor. I'll get you back for this. Just you wait.
What? I'm just saying it as it is. If you mentioned this earlier, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
There's a moment's pause. My hand stills mid-air as my attention shifts to Ashton and the world he leaves hanging between the four of us. He doesn't meet my eye. I don't think he's even aware of what he said. But the meaning in each syllable alone is clear. And they echo. They sting. They burn.
I'm sorry. Saw her?
Yeah, they arrived together. Bella looked fine to me then. I don't know.
Of course. Of course! Why else would Isabella leave on her own after being told to stay put? After that little chat about money this morning? Something close to silence falls while I mull over the words, both what's already been said and what's left unspoken. When I do find my voice, it only reeks with nothing but bitter, unpleasant thoughts. Thoughts I quickly stamp out before they surface. Thoughts I hide the best I can in the deepest part of my mind, locking away for no one to see.
Oh, that's good. At least she didn't have to travel alone, right? At least. Good.
Yet try as I might, the green-eyed monster easily rears its ugly head. Like it always does every time his gaze lingers a second longer. Every time he smiles in a manner far too gentle, far too sincere, whenever he thinks no one can see. Every time my mind suggests his words mean more than they should. Every small little thing, despite what he says, despite his tone.
Look, you guys.
For all I know, it may just be the same kind of fondness born from friendship. Maybe I'm simply overthinking like he often tells me, or maybe there really is something there. But in his short display of impatience, I know the whole of it is just for show. After all, growing up together with him didn't teach me nothing about him. For whose sake is it this time, though? For him? For Zachary? For her? Or for me? That I can't tell.
If she says she's okay, then there's nothing we can do about it. It's not like we can stop her either. Besides, she's still acting like the same old Isabella to me, if she can still run around like that.
Why are you taking her side?
I'm not. But if she wants to watch Zach's movie with us, I'm not going to stop her. She's probably the one looking forward to it the most.
Ash, that's... You, of all people, should know...
Tell you what, if I notice something amiss with her, I'll take her to the nearest hospital myself. Is that good enough for you?
My mouth opens and snaps shut almost as quickly, forming a thin, hard line instead. I can't respond. Not because there's nothing to say. On the contrary, there's plenty. So many things I can use to reason and get him to agree. But because he speaks with much certainty, with much reassurance, it feels like there isn't even a choice. All I can give is a long, deep breath and a reluctant nod in the face of it. Before I can get a grip of myself and my own weakness, the mood immediately shifts and I'm being tackled into a hug.
Thanks, Becca. It's always been you with him, isn't it? Did you say something? Me? Nothing. Don't mind me.
A lie, obviously. What else can it be? Each and every smile, a tiny effort to keep things as they are. Or so I tell myself. Little do I know, this is merely a preamble. It starts out quietly and without fanfare, amidst friendly jabs and harmless teasing, with a scrap of paper fluttering harmlessly to the ground. One that looks suspiciously like a cheap Halloween prank, no matter how you look at it. And yet, despite how ludicrous it all is, Isabella stubbornly insists, as if our whole life depends on acknowledging the truth in her story. Does she even realize how absurd she sounds? Crivens, even my students wouldn't fall for this.
Isabella, aren't you taking this a bit too far?
She doesn't give me time to regret nor think over my choice of words. From there, it escalates, grows into an argument too petty even for our standards as adults. Before we know it, one after another, harsh, scathing words are being spoken.
It's not a joke! Will you guys listen to me first? I saw something in the house earlier. It stood right in front of me. If I hadn't gotten away, that thing might have...
Right. And in broad daylight, Isabella. Even someone gullible would find the logic in that screwed up. There's also no way in hell that this supernatural shit is true.
But it's real! What do you think I saw?
A hallucination? A delusion? Didn't you say you fell down some stairs? So maybe Rebecca's right.
It happened after, when I was trying to get away. I almost got stuck in the same room with that thing. We're all in danger. I thought you were my friends. Why don't you believe me?
Someone has to be patient in all this. And however much my own has already been frayed earlier, there's no one else. Who else here can deal with someone selfishly acting like a kid? Like every other time, it has to be me.
We are, and you know that. But this thing and that thing has got nothing to do with the other. When Rose called earlier, I thought she's just exaggerating. But based on what I'm seeing right now, maybe it's better if we really postpone this for now.
Don't bother.
And just like that, she cuts us off. Slams the door right on our faces while my own temper flares before I can stop it. Although it falters briefly at the hard expression on her when she snatches the blasted paper from Ashton, I hold on to it. Regardless of how upset she appears, soured expression and balled fist, throwing a tantrum is simply unacceptable. For a grown woman at that. Words form at the tip of my tongue, ready. But before I can open my mouth and let all of it out, her feelings and mistakes be damned, Zachary raises a voice of his own.
Guys!
A warning underneath the warm and hopeful beat of his voice. We all stop and look at him, and even my own anger subsides a little at his tone.
Why don't we all calm down first? I'm sure Isabella has her reasons too. No need to be hard on her. And hey, ain't this supposed to be a happy get-together?
To an outsider, it may sound like a desperate request, but Zachary has always been the one to keep a level head over petty squabbles. This time's no different. He knows what to say, and when he lets it fall, they only ring sharp and true.
We haven't seen each other for months. I'd really love to know what y'all have been up to. I only ever get to talk to Bella over chat. Please.
And as careful as he is with his own tone, it does make me feel ashamed. We're supposed to be here for him, to give what little support we can give. Yet here he is, trying to keep 3 stubborn people from outright hashing it out in public. Later, we can and will talk about it, of course. There's a proper time and place for it, and at the moment, my anger and whatever reprimands carries no longer matter. Beside me, Ashton appears to have already caught on. The lines of his shoulder eased to something much more relaxed, his expression back to its usual nonchalance. Isabella, however, she stands perfectly still, her hands clasped in the strap of her bag like a lifeline, her eyes trained at some point near her shoes. There's no anger in her face, only an undeniable hurt. She's never been good at hiding what she thinks. Always the open book, always the one to wear her heart out in the open. And when she looks up, her answer is also as simple.
I'm sorry. Today's not a good day for a movie night out. I think I'll pass. Enjoy, you guys.
Isabella refuses to meet our eyes, Zachary's in particular. And though she smiles, it's hollow and belied by her trembling hands and droopy shoulders. I wait for another outburst from her when she drags in a breath. Anything's easier to deal with than her short, wounded glances. Only it doesn't come. Instead, she stumbles back and merely walks off on us.
Isabella, wait!
Zachary and Ashton's voices immediately follow mine. However, the swell of the afternoon crowd has already swallowed her retreating back before our words can reach her. Regardless, if they do, I don't think she'll listen. So exasperating. And here I was thinking earlier how admirable she can be when she acts like her age. All because of one stupid piece of prank she can't let go of. Despite the tense, awkward air she leaves, none of us speaks nor chases after her. Even with my own frustrations over the matter, even with Ashton's seeming indifference. Until Zachary's sharp exhale slices through the stiff atmosphere, and he voices out what we're all likely too proud to admit given our natures.
Really, guys?
She walked out on us, Zachary. Can you believe her?
Yes, I saw. But that ain't the point here. You could have at least humored her, toned down on the teasing for a bit.
He sends Ashton a pointed look at the last one. For a moment, the latter appears about to say something in his defense, but soon drops the idea altogether. He swiftly averts his gaze with a small frown, his hand going to rub the back of his neck in an awkward gesture to comfort himself. He knows Zachary's right in more ways than one, and this is the closest we can get to him admitting he's in the wrong, but...
You can't just tolerate that. If this is her idea of a joke, I fail to see what's so funny about it. She went overboard, Zachary. And then she goes home all upset, like we're the ones at fault here?
Cut her some slack, please. We're all aware how she felt about the mansion in the first place, yeah?
Exactly.
You don't really believe what's written on that paper, do you?
No, but come on, Ash. You're the detective here. You must have noticed something we didn't.
Hey, Zach, keyword detective. Police? Dealing with supernatural shit isn't in our training manual, if that's what you're trying to get at.
I ain't. All I'm trying to say is, we all have our bad days. Give her the benefit of the doubt, okay?
She was behaving like a child, Zachary.
Ain't we all? Look, let's just hear her out next time, aight? Talk about it properly, preferably without anyone blowing a fuse. She won't be making a big deal out of this if she's in a better mood in the first place. Something else must have ticked her off at work. Just snowballed from there.
Probably not something.
A shadow passes over Ashton's eyes, his eyebrows furrowed in deep thought. But he tucks it all away before Zachary notices, or I can ask about it. Catching that look on him, however brief as it is, leaves me unsettled for some reason. It's something I'm not used to seeing in him.
Someone, though.
Oh, so you did do something.
Oh!
What? No! Why does it have to be me?
You tell me. You used to be so friendly with each other. Now, every time you're in the same room, all you two seem to do is ruffle each other's feathers.
Because they like each other and they're too stubborn to admit it.
What exactly happened, Ash?
Nothing.
Alright, and you're a much better cook than sis.
I think that's his way of calling bullshit.
I didn't do anything. Really. You might be right, though. Something must have happened during the open house. There was a crowd, you know? It could have easily been one of their guests. Anyway, we should stop wasting time here. What's done is done. Let's just head inside. The movie's going to start soon.
Ashton doesn't even wait as he shuffles inside, leaving Zachary and I staring after him. A diversion, if I've ever seen one. Frankly, I don't know what to make of it. Moments like this often blur the lines between those he prefers to keep a distance and those he's opened up to. And sometimes, it puts the question of how far he's willing to trust his own friends. Sure, his straight face, whenever there's something on his mind, is nothing short of impressive. For people he never bothered to let in, it's typical. No one will care, and that's exactly how he prefers it. He never did quite like the kind who meddles. But those who know him well, those he is allowed to get close, are bound to catch on, bound to grow concerned regardless of the things he wants to keep to himself. Especially with that look on his face earlier.
What's with him? I was just pulling his leg.
I'm sure it's just as he says. He would have said something by now if there's anything we should be concerned about. You know how he operates.
All empty reassurances. I don't believe the words myself. In the first place, there shouldn't have been a need to make these excuses for him. But it's obvious there's something that needs to be addressed as soon as I get the chance. And it can't be in the presence of other people, including Zachary.
Oh, all 13 of my locks know exactly how.
He is not letting that go.
Don't hold it against him.
Easy for you to say. He never does that to you guys.
He knows his boundaries. And Belle would have probably hit him with that metal rolling pin she keeps, if he so much as thinks about it.
Actually, I'm more surprised she hasn't done so yet.
Short pause, then like a switch that has been turned off, Zachary's jovial mood dies down. It doesn't take long for him to find his voice again, though the hesitance in it is apparent.
Rebecca? About Bella earlier. Could you...
Don't worry about her. Just enjoy your own movie for now. I'll check on her when I get home. Maybe I could even get the real story out of her.
That'd be great. Thanks. Man, I was really hoping to watch this with all of you.
Yeah.
We'll get another chance. It's not like we won't be seeing each other soon. We're living in the same city, for heaven's sake.
Touché. Anyway, you should head in too. Who knows what trouble Ash has gotten in there without us. Somebody should keep him in line.
He's a grown man. He can take care of himself for a few minutes. What about you?
Getting us some snacks. My treat, yeah? We've still got a few minutes to spare before they start. I'll catch up with you both soon.
All right, but don't take too long. Just bottled water for me, if you're planning to get some drinks too.
Right, gotcha.
He gives my shoulder a light tap, then hurries over to the snack bar. Briefly, I allow my gaze to linger past it, towards the far end of the street, the same direction Isabella took off earlier. Searching, hoping, expecting she'll simply be standing amongst the passing crowd. That everything's just a bluff. Perhaps there'll also be an apology ready at the tip of her tongue, and a promise to be more responsible with her actions next time. But much as I will it, there's no sign of her. After that little spat, you'll be foolish to even wait at this point. So, with a heavy sigh, I finally step inside. It's not the excited chatter that stops me once I'm in the small auditorium. Rather, it's the sheer lack of one. The hall's not completely empty, no. From where I'm standing, I can still spot a couple of heads dotting the seats, some nodding, mostly engaged in cheerful conversation before the film starts. But the absence of a bigger audience and what few murmurs floating in the air only made the room seem a lot larger than it actually is.
Surely this can't be all there is from that crowd outside.
They had to close a whole street for this? Didn't they? In any case, this is still just the first showing. For sure, it'll have a bigger turnout in the next one. However, despite these reassurances, a pang of worry hits me as I stride down the aisle, passing by rows after rows of empty seats in search of Ash. I don't even want to think of how Zachary would feel after all the effort he put into this. Though if there's still any comfort to be found here, it's that there'll be less chances of loud interruptions, particularly from theater-going lacking manners. And the fact I'll be spending the evening with a friend. And Ashton. A familiar warmth, one I've harbored longer than anything, immediately unfurls in my stomach. In spite of myself, in spite of the reasons I've convinced myself of for being here. Naturally, those are not lies. They never are. I'm here to give what little moral boost I can lend as a friend. But I won't deny Ashton has been a part of it too. Sometimes you simply can't say no. And once you realize logic's no longer at play, striking a fair balance with reason becomes harder. Trickier. It's not like I can simply ask myself to stop or forget for a moment, can I? It doesn't work that way. Not after I've gone and loved the same person for 17 years. If only he'd look this way for once. Even for a short, fleeting second. And maybe...
Okay, listen. I personally know the guy. He might be able to help. I can easily get in touch with him if you want, so...
I thought we all agree there'd be no work calls tonight. Pay up, Ash. That pizza fund box needs some cash.
All he gives for an answer is a glance and a small smile. Yet it still sends the heat swirling in my stomach rising up to my cheeks. A feeling I instantly put the reins on as I take the empty seat next to him. Oops. Traitorous little thing, that smile. I don't think he's ever been aware of what it does to any woman who happens to catch sight of it. He wouldn't have thrown it out so casually otherwise. And then again, it's also one of the very few things he allows only the people close to him to see.
Sorry, just a sec, Becca. Hey, I gotta go? If you get this message, just let me know, okay? I'll free up my schedule if you want to check with him. No fees attached. I promise.
He's calling Isabella.
Bye.
Fees? You're not doing anything illegal, are you?
You know me better than that.
Inspector Abigail?
Yeah. No! I am not losing that bet. Don't count on it.
Oh, come on, Ash. It's not like it's going to put a dent in your paycheck. Which one is it? Officer Carl? Officer Benjamin? The chief?
None of the above. And Chief hates it when I call him. Give it up.
Ash stops a minute. A moment when I hold a hand up at him, the expression on my face expecting, although a smile threatens to break through at the baffled look spreading on his own. He resembles a lost child like this. Sometimes I forget we're the same age.
What?
Mobile.
And why?
Evidence. What else? You always preach they don't lie. Put your money where your mouth is. Show.
He blinks once, then sighs. rather loudly at that, with every intention to let the whole auditorium know how tedious he finds this little back and forth is. Just the same, he raises the gadget up in my face, but before I can even read past a single letter, he swiftly slides it out of view and straight into his pocket.
It's not work, I swear by my badge.
Oh, just admit you didn't want to pay. You're a worse cheapskate than Belle.
Becca, look at me. Tell me, does this face seem like it's lying to you?
Maybe. Here's an idea then. Why don't you find a mirror and answer that yourself?
Pass. I've seen it plenty. It still looks the same. Honestly, it's getting boring.
All right, suit yourself. Just remember, I'm not the one who got caught breaking a deal we all made.
Really, Rebecca, it's not what you're thinking. A friend just needed help with the problem. It's nothing big enough that I'll run off on you two. Don't worry.
It's a sign. Time to end this little banter. As fun as this chat has been, some lines he simply doesn't allow me to cross, regardless of the years we've spent growing up together. Especially with the sort of work he does. Of course, that doesn't mean I haven't tried. I still do, from time to time, hoping he'll at least share something more substantial than his routine vague answers. Occasionally, he'll talk about it if we ask, but never in full detail and only stuff we need to know. In case we need to look for his dead body, he joked one time. He doesn't repeat it after a stern look from me, but it doesn't make the whole situation any less frustrating.
Where's the big guy, by the way? He can't be missing from his own premiere.
Food. Is there something you want? I could...
No, it's good. He'll know what to get. Frankly, I'm more worried about him. Do you think Zach's gonna be okay with this?
I don't need to follow where he directs his gaze to know what he's talking about. I've seen it with my own. Felt the exact same doubt.
I honestly don't know. I only have a small idea of how these things work. But he put a lot of effort into this. Someone will certainly notice.
He did put a chunk of his savings on it. He was hoping to start a small studio when it takes off. If it takes off.
You doubt him?
No, just concerned, I guess. As far as I know, the whole fund was initially for the studio. Space, equipment, that kind of stuff. I have no idea what suddenly came over him. He already had enough to start one on his own. Why would he use it for something else?
I'm sure it'll be fine. Zachary knows what he's doing. He had me check the scripts and the research he did before he went through with this. His personal experience with the topic also counts. I think he's onto something here.
He merely lets out another hum. Only I can't figure out if it's an agreement or meant to be something else. The whole conversation dies down soon after, and silence falls between us. A strange kind of atmosphere that teeters between tense and comfortable, almost to the point of awkward. Between the two of us, this rarely ever happens. We've already gone past this point as children. Yet Ashton can't seem to sit still, discreetly checking his phone every few seconds, glancing back at the entrance when he thinks no one's paying attention. Even when people are starting to trickle into the room and fill some of the vacant seats. It makes the wait for Zachary all the more longer than it should be. In the thick of it, I find myself grasping for something else to talk about. Just to calm the growing restlessness in my stomach. That's a good question. So you were at the mansion, or what about you? You know what? She'll want to know. Oh, but that was the wrong answer, apparently. Shit. Welp. But in practice, it's far from an easy task. Not that there's a great lack of things to chat about. Quite the opposite, in fact. And getting in conversation with him is a breeze when you're already familiar with him. It just so happens that by nature, Ashton and I are people rarely predisposed to small talk. He'll stick to his music, I'll keep to my books, as if living in a world of our own. There's a sort of understanding in it, in solitude's appeal, that only two of us appear to grasp. Like this, we don't have to talk. The other's company is almost always enough. That's what I believed then, anyway. Until our small bubble grew to include more than just us, and little by little we've begun to move away from that tiny, quiet sanctuary. Somehow, words have ceased to be more than just a mere option after, and picking the right one is now a necessity.
So, you were at the mansion?
A question innocent enough, yet the air changes around him almost palpably. And when his lips form a thin line and his jaw tenses, I know right away he has found the words and chosen a huge bother to answer, if not utterly unnerving. The why confuses me. The careful tone he takes, even more so. Normally, I'll back away as soon as the mood around him shifts, before his response even comes. The change prods at that ugly little feeling I've been keeping at bay since earlier. Somehow, whatever his answer will be, feels like it'll sate something more than just my curiosity.
What about it?
Oh, just wondering, I guess. It simply didn't cross my mind you'd be there, is all.
I happened to pass by.
Well, that's different. Your cases rarely ever take you out of Luxborn, don't they? What changed this time?
What makes you think a case is the reason why I was out there?
Maybe it's because you don't usually go out of town much? I could count on one hand the number of times you did in the past 5 years, you know.
Only 5 times, to be exact. Once on a trip to a nearby county where his father lives. Twice to stay with Zachary's grandparents for the weekend upon their invitation, and another to attend 2 of his mum's concert performances overseas. Basically, if he thinks it doesn't concern him, he won't budge from where he's already made himself comfortable. That, and he hates going on long drives, much less on trips taking him away from the city. If he ever gives the impression of a lazy guy at first glance, well, that's exactly what he is. His little detour today, though, if it wasn't for a case, then what else can it be? Really, he needs to give me more credit than that.
Anselm's hardly out of town. It's a 30-minute drive, Becca.
True, but I know you. You most certainly aren't there for a stroll or the view.
Did it even occur to you I might be checking the open house?
You hate gatherings like that.
I like them well enough when I have to.
Don't kid yourself. Why would you even need a mansion that big? You barely stay in your own flat.
Surely needs a fancy garage?
Will you quit the sass? And I doubt Belle even invited your ass over there. You're the last person she'd ever want to see while hosting an open house. You do annoy her sometimes.
Rebecca, Christ, why do I always have to spell everything out? I already said it. I just happened to pass by. It was after I finished some work. No one invited anyone. Isabella has got nothing to do with it. I invited myself. End of story.
There's no anger in his tone. It's merely the sound of finality, of wanting to be done with this whole dumb exchange. But the way to carry snaps the last line, keeping that awful feeling and my own temper in check. It snowballs from there. My mouth moves before any other rational thought catches up to it.
So there is a case. You don't have to keep those things from me. Just say you have one. I'm not asking you to explain anything.
Why do you even want to know if there is one in the first place? And even if there is, you know the details are always off limits.
I don't. I couldn't care less if it's a case or not. But I could stand to be answered properly instead of being given vague, mindless answers. It's a simple yes or no question, Ash, for goodness sake.
You've known longer than anyone how I work, Rebecca. This shouldn't be surprising to you.
Ashton, in case you didn't notice, people do worry about you. Every time you're out who knows where, playing your little detective game. Is that such a hard concept to grasp?
Well, maybe you should have said so in the first place instead of... Damn it. Just drop this, Rebecca. This isn't going anywhere.
What the bloody hell is your problem? You've been in this stupid, wretched mood since earlier. At least try to hold an actual conversation if you can't be bothered to tell why you're in such a black mood.
Please don't tell me she's shouting this in this whole theater.
I could say the same thing about you. Can we just move on to something else, please? I've heard enough arguments to fill my quota for the day. If we keep at it, this is going to end up worse than the one we had with Isabella.
One name. A hush overcomes me. Not because his words have completely tempered my anger, No, it's still there. It swells, churns, rages within me, waiting. For whatever else I've yet to say, born from it, I hold it back. All of them. Every bitter word, I leave them unspoken in favor of giving a quiet voice to that one tiny realization. The very same one that awful feeling has been whispering to my ears all this time.
It wasn't really because of a case, was it? You were there for something else.
Someone else.
How did you even get to that? Didn't we already establish why I was there? Why are we going back to this again?
You could have just said so. It's not like it would make a difference. In the end, she's not even here.
Wait, what the hell are you going on about this time?
I could have easily answered that one. Perhaps with a good serving of the anger that has been stewing inside me, seasoned with more venom than I'm accustomed to showing him. He's lucky Zachary chooses that moment to show up, carrying bags of popcorn on both arms and totally oblivious to what occurred. I couldn't have asked for a better moment for someone to interfere.
Sorry, Ash, they ran out of, am I interrupting something?
A smile is the only answer I give him before I stand up and gesture for him to take the seat I vacated. When I start speaking again, my tone is as casual as I can manage, above the struggle with my own frustration.
No harm done. We were just talking.
Really? Just talking? If this ain't a good time, we can postpone this.
Just take the damn seat, Zach.
He immediately does so, albeit awkwardly, while I flop down next to him.
Okay. Clue me in if someone's about to lose it. Just so, you know, I can get out before anything happens.
And that's that. The movie starts minutes after. But for the better half of the evening, only a strained mood permeates in the air between us, my own irritation winding and unwinding inside me. In the midst of it all, a single thought nudges at me. Would it have been any different if Isabella were here? The rest of the evening passes without further event, though we don't stay long after. Some plans were made for after the movie the night before, but they're mostly Isabella's suggestions, and with her absent, there isn't much point to it, is there? We'll just have to find some other time, preferably when everyone's in a better frame of mind. Certainly not when the rest of us are this exhausted, having things nagging at the back of our minds, or this emotionally drained. That little disagreement with Ashton feels like a warning sign already, and it's not a line I'm willing to test tonight. Sometimes there are things you simply can't force. A sentiment we all likely share at the moment, if the silence before we part ways tells anything. Even Zachary seems reluctant to break it.
Well, it was fun, despite, you know. But really, thanks for staying, you two.
Don't mention it. It's the least we can do.
Nah, I owe you both. Especially you. You sure you don't want payment for all that history checking you did?
Quite sure. Oh, you know what? On second thought, just save it for when you win an award. Treat us someplace nice or something.
I doubt it'll go that far.
Oh, please. Think positive for once.
I hear you, ma'am. I hear you.
Then put some back into it.
It's really too early to say, but here's hoping, I guess. We'll see. Anyhow, I'm off. Got some new photography gig lined up in the next few days. But just call me anytime you guys want to hang out. Sketch should be easy to free up for some R&R now. How about you, Ash? You coming with?
We both glance his way. The mine probably comes off sharper, more scrutinizing. He hasn't said a word since we left the theater, his eyes completely glued to his phone as soon as the movie ended. Typical. He doesn't even spare me a look when he slides his phone back in his pocket and answers.
Oh, yeah. I need to double check something with the guys at the precinct.
Same way then. You gonna be fine on your own, Rebecca?
My car's parked just a block away from here. It should be an easy walk. But both of you should get going if you're in a hurry.
Right. Drop us a message when you get home. And that thing with Isabella, too, when you get a chance to see her. See ya.
Yeah, I will. Be careful, you two. Bye.
They leave without a backwards glance. But despite my own exhaustion and the strong desire to go home, I remain on the same spot for some scant seconds still. Watching them, trying to figure out where to go from here, as if the answer can be found in their retreating backs. If Zachary hasn't mentioned Isabella again, I probably would have forgotten about his request. I would have simply left the anger to subside until we can pretend like nothing happened. When I finally crossed the street, long after they disappeared behind the evening crowd, I only have one choice in mind. She's not answering, though. I let it ring for another second before making a swipe at the screen and dropping the call. I don't bother stopping myself from releasing a loud sigh this time, long and weary, heavy with every frustration in my body today. By this hour, she's probably already back home, and it's very likely she's holed herself up in her apartment. I won't be surprised. She has done that before, very much like a kid throwing a tantrum.
I just don't understand her sometimes.
I don't understand why she can't get a hint, why she doesn't think she's being ridiculous. Why, of all people, we're the ones she has to play some dumb Halloween prank on. Granted, Ashton's the one who started it, but does she think it would be a good idea to go with that story?
It makes you wonder why we're friends, but here we are.
Now I'm left to fix things after her. If I'm going to be honest, not having her around for a few hours today is a welcome break. Peace and quiet is one thing you'll rarely get with her around. Yet the silence and lack of her presence is nowhere near comforting. It merely lends the air this strange clarity. Every little sound, every single movement, more palpable. With it comes the unease. It hasn't really left me this afternoon, and again, everything I've wished for today, I find myself yearning for an uninterruption and dial her number again. As frustrating as today is, I can also use a friendly voice. It rings for a good minute or two, until just when I'm beginning to think she's not going to answer this either, the line picks up. Nope! It's not her!
Belle, hey! Just checking on you. I'm on my way home. Is there something you want me to pick up for you? You probably skipped dinner, didn't you? Don't worry, that diner a block away is still open. Want me to buy you anything from there?
It's the ghost girl.
Isabella?
Fuck! A jolt of surprise hits me, and in the resulting panic I accidentally dislodge my mobile from its seat on the dashboard. Soon I'm scrambling blindly for it with my other hand while keeping a steady eye on the road ahead. Although muffled heavily by the surface, a voice still crackles from the loudspeakers before I can put it back. My temper rises.
What's this? Some sort of practical joke? Isabella, if you think this is funny...
My hand stops dead for a moment. I spare the device a brief glance, waiting. Seconds pass. Nothing happens, though. Frankly, I'm not sure what I'm expecting, but the lines in my mouth form into a frown regardless.
Isabella? Is everything all right over there?
I have to make a conscious effort not to panic right then and there, although my tight hold on the steering wheel tells a different story altogether.
Isabella? Belle? Hey, Belle, what happened?
Only a burst of static answers me, and... Maybe this lapse is entirely because of exhaustion. It has been a long day, and I haven't fully recovered from last week's bout of flu, contrary to what I've been telling people. Though perhaps, had I paid closer attention to it, had I not been so occupied with other thoughts, I probably would have noticed earlier that it never came from my phone. From somewhere right behind me. Oh! Time slows to a crawl. Looking up is a mistake. The first thing I see is its face. A ghastly shade, every inch battered, bruised, and bloodied. Even in the darkness and the world passing by in a blur of lights outside, I can still make out the wounds. Blood still oozes from it, little trails of crimson running down its face, glistening under what little light there is. But it is the gleam in its eyes that catches mine. Quite the anguish and the desperation in them, more than its hideous features and the awful stench of gore now soaking the air. And try as I might, I can't bring myself to look away, even as its lip contorts into a horrific smile. Even as a sharp, harsh noise pierces the air and the silence around us. Oh, fuck. Against everything I've been taught, and I've constantly reminded myself, I close my eyes. Oh, we are gonna save. It's a brief moment. A short, vivid second of muscle memory. An instinct completely taking over. And if I didn't allow it, if my hands didn't move, or my feet didn't hit the brakes in that exact moment, I might have... No. Shake the notion away before I lose myself in it. Right now, it's an ugly line of thought I refuse to venture into. Not when breathing is a struggle and every ounce of strength has been totally drained from my body. Most definitely not while the sound of screeching tires still rings in my ears. I'm alive. I'm safe. That's all that matters. But it's not my face that I look for when I finally open my eyes. Hold on. I expected stains, little telling marks, creases on the cover to show me where it sat not a second ago. But whatever it is, it left not a single trace. And though courage is a hard thing to gather at this point, I take what little of it remains in me and turn towards the back seat. Even then, there's none. Is there really something in there? With how empty it is, I'm beginning to doubt it. Stupid flu again.
I need a long rest after this.
My hands fall uselessly to my sides, numb from how taut my grip on the wheel is gone, yet still trembling from the unexpected rush of adrenaline. Against my ears, my heart still pounds an erratic rhythm, and my breathing hasn't slowed down. The world has already righted itself without waiting for me, and little by little, second after second, as I sit there motionless, color begins to seep back around me. Along with it are the sounds and a voice. No longer as indistinct as it was earlier.
Becca, how do you press this button? You've already started recording.
Her voicemail.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Let's see. Hello there. Isabella Santos here. Sorry you missed me. Just leave a message after the beep, and I'll get back to you soon. Thank you. Shut up, Ashton.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I can hear you thinking about it. Zach, Ashes.
All right, kids, settle down before you break anything.
The recording is old. Made early in our friendship. Roughly 3 or 4 years ago, probably. I can't remember now. I'm more surprised Isabella kept this, when she could have easily replaced it. Then again, little things like this, no matter imperfect as they may seem, are what made her the happiest. A fond smile slips into my lips before I know it. I allow it to, despite the headache already forming at the side of my head and every negative thought still swimming inside. When at last I speak, my tone is as light as it can be.
Hey, Belle. I know you're in there. I'm on my way home. If you need anything, send me a message ASAP. I'll see if I can still get it for you. You've got 15 minutes. And, if there's something you want to talk about, let me know, okay? Bye.
The phone call ends with a faint click, and a pensive mood washes over me. With it comes the small truth. Her stay has always been meant to be something fleeting. Earn some good money, go home, is what she'd tell herself during her first year here. Now, half a decade later, I'm not sure if she still believes that. Even I'm not sure I still believe it, if I still believe it. And with these ill feelings I carry with me, I'm more inclined to think there's something in her reasons that has changed along the way. There's merely hunches, but it's something I'd rather not bring up. because I'm almost too afraid of what her answer will be. Silence is far from a pleasant company for the rest of my drive. Okay. This is a long day. Rebecca and Ashton were seen chatting while waiting for the movie to start. What could have been a nice moment turned sour when the two ended up having an argument. On her way home, Rebecca glimpsed something suspicious sitting in the back of the seat of her car. Okay. But it's a respite all the same. From an overactive imagination playing tricks on a flu-addled mind, and from smiles never meant for my eyes. All of them I abandon, if only for a brief moment. It begins innocently enough. Tuesday morning arrives like any other day before it, bright and clear. Even though it comes with an extra helping of the unusual October weather, I appreciate being able to catch a glimpse of the clear skies lately. After going through a bout of sickness last week, it does something to lift the mood of what would otherwise be a dreary morning. And despite being mostly a creature of habit, I wind up waking earlier than usual because of it. Still no earlier than Isabella, it appears. I've assumed she'll take a day or two off because of what happened to Miss Cooper. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Oh, so we've jumped ahead. Yeah, so it is now a couple of days, she said. So we are now October. Yeah, it did say October 25th, didn't it? Pay attention. The sound of the morning news drifts from her unit while I walk past on the way to my mailbox. Chances are, around this hour, she's already dressed and ready to go. Probably just waiting for the next bus to arrive. I've tried following her example before, but I don't think I'll be repeating that.
Really? How can anyone be up before the sun is up?
I concur. That's a habit she got from home, she said, instilled in her by the kind of life she grew up in. Like clockwork, it's always at 4 a.m., either to help with the chores or prepare her little siblings for school. It surprised me the first time. She just didn't look like someone who could. In the end, I've simply passed it off as one of the many things anyone will have to get used to around her. Not that I'll ever fully understand. I'm my parents' only child. We aren't well off, but so far, I've lived a relatively easy life. I didn't have to think about bills or food for the next day, or paying for any sibling's tuition on top of my own, or supporting a sick father's medication. All I have to worry about were my grades, if I'd gain Mum and Dad and Da's approval, or what we'd be having for dinner. When put next to hers, they all pale in comparison. They look less like problems and more like petty issues this way.
Petty issues?
But as unimportant as it all sounds, sometimes its ugly head rears at the most inappropriate moments. And sometimes they come through your mailbox in the form of a fancy-looking letter, pretty red ribbons and all. Whoever sent this has spent silly money on the envelope alone. Verging on ridiculous, really. I can already imagine Isabella wrinkling her nose when she sees this. Then she'll complain about unnecessary expenses and rich people problems. I'm almost afraid to touch it myself. As if simply brushing a hand against its crisp surface will be enough to put a crease on it, and it'll be a terrible slight to the sender. But as extravagant as I find this, it isn't really the first time I've received one. Most of the time it's not even for me, so who am I to complain? Either way, no look of surprise crosses my face once I flip the envelope over to see my parents' names written in a neat script.
Nothing new, then.
Their years in the academe naturally brought with it various connections. People from other fields. Art, science, business, politics, you name it. This one, though, gives off a much personal vibe. Letters like this usually come from old students, People who've grown fond of my parents and they, in turn, treat like children of their own. I've only met a few of them. Most have moved on to become successful in their own careers, and little letters like this are their way of expressing gratitude. It's one thing Mom and Dad are proud of. Rightfully so, and I'm happy for them. But there are times I wish they'll remember they have a daughter here. The real one. Not that it's of any importance now. It's not like they didn't raise me well and provide for me. They did. I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for their hard work. And like a dutiful child, I do everything I can to give back. Even if it's a thing as letting them know they've got another mail waiting for them. The phone rings for a good minute before someone answers. Mum, her voice as warm as I remember.
Becca?
Hi, Mum. How's the conference going?
Well enough. Until your dad sprained his ankle.
Oh no, is it bad?
I'm alright. In case anyone in this family cares to listen, I'm alright. Very much alive, darling.
I like him.
And there you have it. He'll be up and walking in a few weeks, don't worry. We're going to have to extend our stay here until it heals, though. Is something the matter?
Nothing big. Just that this mail arrived for you this morning.
A lie. Thankfully, she didn't notice. Although, if I'm going to be honest, a small part of me yearns for her to do so and ask me about it. But I put down that idea almost as soon as it surfaces. I shouldn't make them fret. They're busy.
What does it say?
Raise your glasses, give cheers to the good times, blah, blah.
Becca manners. That isn't how I taught you to read.
Ouch.
Sorry. You are cordially... it's an invitation, Mum, for a housewarming party. From, Hannah?
The name rings a bell, though at the moment I can't recall when or where I've heard it recently. It must be nothing too important if I didn't bother committing it to memory. There are a lot of Hannahs in the world, so who knows?
Hannah.
She also wrote you a note, Mum. It says you used to be her private tutor at the Evans Mansion. And that she misses you and would love to see you two again.
It makes my heart clench to read another openly say those words to them. The same ones that I want to tell them. I want to see you too. It's been years since we've been together as a family, and if there's one thing that hasn't changed from childhood, it's that Mum and Dad are still busy with their respective careers. Out of the country, away on some meeting or symposium, sometimes for months on end. It only grew more frequent with the years until I'm old enough to live on my own. I'd like to think that's how I'd become independent at such an early age. They've always praised me for that. At times, I wish they didn't.
Evans? Oh, I remember now. Honey, it's Hannah. Hannah Evans. Remember? Bright girl, 2 years older than Becca?
Didn't she get married a few years ago? 7 now, I think. But, they grow up so fast, these kids.
Yeah, she invited us to that too. Fonte de Medici. But we missed that one because you had to present your paper in Singapore.
We did send her a note after. Still a shame we couldn't attend, though. What is it about this time?
She sent another invite for a housewarming party. Becca, when is it?
This Friday, Mum.
Oh, that's too bad. We'd love to be there, but Da's not in a condition to go walking around. I guess we'd have to decline again. I really miss that girl.
I could go in your place.
I let it slip without thinking. Personally, I've never been fond of gatherings, regardless of how simple people make it seem. But if there's one thing I hate hearing, that disappointed note in Mum's voice always ranks first. Whether it's directed at me or some other thing, it doesn't matter.
Are you sure? Don't you have work this Friday?
The event will be in the evening, Mum. It shouldn't take anything away from my schedule. It's all right. The invite's for 2 people. I can bring someone with me so things don't get boring.
I see. Maybe you can also invite Ashton?
Mum, that's a sure no from him. He hates attending parties. But I'll see what I can do. If not, I can always bring Isabella with me. You know her. She won't say no if there's food involved.
Okay, if it's not going to be a big problem for you, I don't see why not. We owe you this one, darling.
No problem, Mum. I'll even say hi to Hannah for you.
Please do. And let her know we'd love to see her once we're back in the city. Leave her our number or something.
I will.
But you know, the two of you would have become really good friends. Don't you remember? You met with her once. If my memory serves me right, you were 12 then?
This, too, I can't recall. It's probably one of those meetings where we only talked a bit before going our ways. If she did leave an impression, I'm pretty sure I would have written about it somewhere, or at least recognized her name. As it is, the only few people I remember clearly from that time in my life is Ashton and Mandy. To some extent. Mum must have sensed my confusion because she laughs.
Don't push yourself too hard, darling. Really? It felt like having two daughters back then. Sometimes I wish they didn't send her away to boarding school. But, well, you know how often that goes with them. Still, try talking to her while you're there.
Oh, we'll see. I'll let you know what happens after.
I'm looking forward to it, darling. Take care of yourself.
Will do. You too, Mum. Bye. Tell Dar to be careful next time.
She chuckles then. A hearty one, tender and always light on my ears. She may be a stern teacher, but this is the part I love about her the most. The sound of it still echoes even as our call comes to an abrupt end, bringing with it a memory from so many years, when life and responsibilities that accompanied adulthood were things far from our minds. If given the chance, I'd love to go back to those. I don't dwell on it, though, shaking it all away almost as soon as the memory forms a clear picture in my head. I've always wondered how Isabella can easily pretend everything's normal over a phone call, then bounce back to her usual self immediately after. I've seen her do it plenty of times. For me, it just drains whatever energy I have. And with a whole day of teaching still ahead of me, I can't afford to look exhausted in front of my students, even for a wee bit. It's never a good example to set. So with another sigh, I put everything at the back of my mind and tread back to my room. The rest of my day waits. 15 minutes later, I'm heading back out, dressed for the day, my car keys in hand. Ordinarily, I don't stop for anything. There's never a need to. That's the beauty of this apartment complex. It's quiet and everyone keeps to themselves. No useless platitudes in the morning. No need to wear a smile on your face lest other people are nosy enough to ask. Today, however, the morning broadcast still plays from Isabella's room. My brisk pace slows to a stop and a frown gradually forms in my face.
She hasn't left.
Of course, this isn't unusual. There are times when I've left earlier than she did, like last Friday before their open house. But those days are few and far between. It only happens in the direst circumstances, though the last part of that might be a bit of an exaggeration. However, with what's happened in the last few days, maybe today is one. The death of a friend isn't something anyone can brush off, and for someone like Isabella's the kind who gets attached to people easily. With Zachary, Ashton, and I, that has been the case. I can't imagine what she must be going through right now, especially when the woman was someone she owed a lot, despite her training being brief. I've given her the space last night in deference, but perhaps today might be the proper time to check on her?
Oh, whatever. I've still got time anyway.
With light steps, I move closer to her door, hand already poised to knock. Still, I don't do so until I hear her answer me.
Isabella? Belle? Are you in there?
No answer. After a second, I finally knock. Lightly so I don't disturb her in case she's sleeping and has merely left the telly running last night. Never mind how she never lets that happen. Ever. Waste of electricity and all.
I just want to check on you before I leave. Is that okay? Are you going to work today? Belle?
Still nothing.
I'm about to leave. If you want, I can drop you off.
Another round of knocking. Then I'm fishing out a copy of her key from my bag and unlocking the door. She lent it years ago, after I complained about the mess and offered my hand in cleaning up. I thought the gesture was completely unnecessary back then. After all, I could always knock. But she never did bother taking them back from me, always returning it or turning away the conversation whenever I insisted. At one point, I've simply stopped trying to hand it back to her.
Isabella? I'm coming in, all right?
Without waiting for her answer, I push the door open and step inside. Her unit's still a mess. Instant cup noodles on the table, a pile of clothes on one side, paper strewn about everywhere, and an unkept bed, among other things. This much is a given. Will always be a given. I've been here several times already, and I still wonder how she can function like a human being with the place in this state. However, that's neither here nor there. I'm not sure what I'm expecting, but it's certainly not finding an empty flat. Granted, she could have left earlier, far earlier than usual. But she never ever leaves without making sure she's unplugged everything. That's something she doesn't forget to do. Doesn't help that her bathroom appears unused this morning. Another habit, and it can only mean she hasn't been here since last night? Perhaps even since the morning after Miss Cooper's death? Either idea doesn't sit well with me. But with the news we've been hearing lately...
The authorities are still trying to find the cause of death for all the victims. Early investigation revealed most of them were employed under Briar Realty Corporation at the time of death. Meanwhile, BRC has refused to comment on this.
Gathering my wits, I immediately place a call to her mobile. It rings for a good minute, a sound of comfort in itself, but when another minute rolls by without her answering... Well, I'm not a woman prone to panicking. Sudden bouts of temper, maybe, but never panic, despite how I may sound when speaking. And when it ultimately goes straight to her voicemail, a sigh is the only thing I let out. The pause doesn't last long, though. In the next moment, my fingers are already moving across the screen in search of the two people who might be able to help. It's Ashton's number I find first and dial. Call it a habit, but even Isabella thinks he's dependable when the situation calls for it, despite how much they give each other grief. That already says a lot about him. There's Zachary, but around this hour he's probably still sleeping. If he has freelance work, it's very likely he's just gotten himself in bed. He's the last person I want to bother, if anything. The wait doesn't take long. Soon a click, then Ashton's voice echoes through the receiver, rough and still heavy with sleep. He never did grow fond of mornings.
Becca? Christ, what time is it? What's up?
Not you, apparently.
Good one. Did you call us early just to make that joke? I'm going back to sleep.
No, Ash, hold on. This is important.
Becca, stakeout last night. Make this quick. I've still got a few hours before the chief bothers me.
Sorry, I'll let you go back to sleep after. It's just that... Wait, you were on a stakeout last night?
Did I say that? Shit.
What?
Forget I said that. Forget I said anything. Forget we had this conversation.
So, you have no idea?
About what? About what? I also have no idea why we're talking so early in the morning, so there's that.
No! Will you stop sleep talking or whatever for a second? Belle didn't come home last night. She's gone!
Who?
Isabella!
Instead of an answer, a brief pause comes after, followed by something blunt and heavy hitting a sharp surface and a string of rather colorful curses from him. The moment might have been one of the many things I'll keep to myself and remember fondly in the next few days, if things aren't the way they were. When he picks up again, there's no trace of sleep left in his voice.
Say that again, from the top.
Isabella's gone, Ash. She didn't come home last night. Her flat's empty. She left her telly running. You know she doesn't do that at...
Okay, Becca, stop. Calm down first. You're starting to panic.
I'm not!
You are. Breathe. One person's not going to simply disappear like that. This is Isabella we're talking about. Did you try calling her?
What did you think is the first thing I did? She's not picking up. It went to her voicemail.
How about Zach? Did you check with him?
Not yet. I didn't want to bother him. You know he has trouble sleeping and all that.
All right, I'll go ask Zach. I'll call you back.
No, wait!
He ends the call before I can utter a single word of protest. But for the first time since entering this room, tension is gone from my shoulders and my breathing has eased. The bed creaks as I sit down on it with a sigh. The telly still blares the same uninteresting news and I'm surrounded by clutter. All the same, it feels strangely calm to be here without worry nagging at me. I'll have to apologize to Zachary later for sending Ashton his way this early. But for now, relying on the latter for this isn't the wrong choice. It never will be. That's something I won't ever doubt in him, much like his promises. And true to his word, he calls back only a few minutes after the last one has ended.
She's with Zach.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. She could have at least sent a message last night.
What are you, her mother?
It's one thing to hear that from Isabella, but from Ashton?
I don't want to hear anything like that from you.
I'm serious. You've got to stop treating her like she's one of your students, Becca. You don't have to keep tabs on her every time. Last I checked, she's only 3 years younger than the two of us. That's almost a decade gap from those kids you're teaching, you know.
Says the person who keeps calling her Scaredy Cat.
That's not related at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'll go check how she's doing. Don't stress yourself out. You go ahead to work.
Wait, you? Don't you have a precinct to be at? Whatever happened to not treating her like one of my students? Because if anyone's going to ask me, I think you're doing the same thing.
Zach said it's an emergency. Something happened last night.
Emergency?
He didn't put in those exact same words, but it sounded like it.
Ash, what really happened? Is Isabella fine?
She's alright. She's safe. Zach let her stay the night after she... Look, okay. Z-Man wasn't clear about it, but let me handle this. I'll check on her. I'll bring her home.
Sounds like a lie if I've ever heard one. The sort where he omits things so people won't fret. And I'm not sure whether I should be happy he cares that much to do that. There shouldn't be a need for this between us, is there? We grew up together, didn't we? He knows I'm capable of at least hearing out the truth without it gnawing at me for the rest of the day. He knows me better than that. I know him better than that. Frankly, there's plenty of other things to say about it. But despite and after all the trouble he went through with how things are moving at the moment, only one thought occurs to me. How should I say it? Sorry for the trouble, I guess. I recognize his concern for what it is. Okay. That was the right one. It's not new for him to go out of his way for us, and to be honest, this is what I love about him. As much as I would have loved to take this off of his hands, it'll only be selfish of me to insist, considering he knows of my other commitments. To do so feels like I'll be trampling on the kindness he seldom offers to anyone.
Sorry for putting you up to this.
Nah, don't mention it. You've got other things you need to worry about. Take care of those first. This is a small thing.
I still owe you one.
Oh, I can name a few things you can do about that. You know, there's this ice cream shop that opened near the movie house. I could use...
Okay, let's stop right there. That's enough. On second thought, maybe I'll just think about it some other time.
Harsh.
We both laugh. The sound lighter and more comfortable. Like the old days, when a wayward 26-year-old is at the bottom of the list we need to worry about. This is how we find a common ground. We may not agree on a lot of things. We may see things the way the other does, but the give and take is something we've learned to get used to over the years. Whenever it's like this, confidence in him is the least I can offer as thanks.
Really? Thanks for this, Ash.
I'll let you know what happened afterwards, I promise. I'll call you later. You have a good day.
I admit, the way he puts it isn't comforting enough. He can be blunt like that. So many unknown variables, so many words left unsaid. I wish he'd simply lay them all out on the open. Because like this, I'm more inclined to think there's an exaggeration on the other's part. If it's from Zachary or Ashton, I don't know. In the end, all I can do is wait and go about my day, and hope for the best. Before leaving, I spare Isabella's room one last glance, disturbingly quiet now without her in it. I'll get answers from her later. For now, my concerns are best left here. I heard the door close. Okay, good. That was just her leaving. Cool. Rebecca Gales receives a housewarming invitation addressed to her parents that morning. After informing them about it, she checked Isabella's apartment and was shocked to find that she hadn't come home last night. Okay, there we go. Despite my best effort in keeping this morning's events from surfacing in my mind, it stinks. In a way, everything today simply feels like a reminder. Every conversation, regardless of how casual, every topic, no matter how mundane it seems. I blame the news entirely for this. Recent happenings brought quite a few interesting stories to everyone's attention, mostly superstitious talk of death. And when locals talk about death here, anyone can sure as hell count on someone bringing up that mansion Isabella sold not a few weeks ago. Even my own students won't stop yapping about it. I think it's even worse than when it was put back up on the market. Now there are more stories. If this is the world reminding me what matters, or simply because the atmosphere around the time of the year calls for it, I'd rather take the latter. At least then, I can be sure people will forget about it in favor of another set of holidays after. Nevertheless, this may be a painful thing to admit, but listening to them is a pleasant distraction while waiting for Ashton's call. I hope he didn't forget. The school day is about to end soon.
No, that's got nothing with what I heard.
You always hear stuff. I'm not sure if half of them's even real.
No, really. Rowan knows about it. He used to be in the same class with them.
I can hear you from back here, you know.
Whatever, Rowan. Anyway, the story goes like this. There were 3 of them. They entered the mansion on a dare, and they were all never seen again.
Oh, I think we have a hint towards the 3 people in the video camera that we saw at the end of Marianne's story.
No one knows what happened to them up to this day.
They died.
Scary shit, man.
Cock and bull story. Calling it now.
No, you don't get it. Why don't you ask Miss Gales then? Better yet, why don't you go inside the place? I'm betting my allowance you can't do it.
Oh boy. Their talk immediately halts when I look up, all of them suddenly pretending to be engrossed in their current activity. Still, a word to put a stopper to this nonsense is needed. Creativity and imagination fostered by these stories is one thing, but reckless ideas should be corrected before anything potentially tragic comes from it.
Back to your worksheets, everyone. And I don't want to hear any talk of dares or going inside that mansion. It's private property now. You'd all better stay away from it before...
Oh. At the noise, the whole lot of them goes silent. You'd almost hear a pin drop. The look on their faces would have made for a funny picture, but that's irrelevant at the moment. If that is a student loitering around, someone's going to be in trouble.
I'll be back. If you're done, you can leave your worksheets on my desk. Keep the noise to a minimum while I'm gone, okay?
I can sense their eyes on me as I walk out of the room. A muted kind of anticipation. A bit unnerving, but it's far more agreeable than the feeling of being watched I've been enduring these past few days. Class is still in session for most of the rooms. In a few hours, once the final bell rings, however, this place will once again be filled with busy chatter and footfalls, an everyday cycle in itself. But for the moment, I let the silence guide me, my ears focusing on whatever sounds there are or there will be, searching for that distinct clanking of metal. A good minute passes, and for the portion of it, only my steps echo through the halls. And another. I'm about to turn around when the sound of it halts my footsteps. It's a little muffled and infrequent, but grows louder after each interval. With the hallway devoid of people, if I don't put a stop to it soon, it'll start to disturb the other classes still going on. Looking for it doesn't take long. All I do is follow the racket, and shortly, I'm standing in front of a nondescript row of unoccupied lockers. Another jump scare, fuck. And from inside one of them, sitting in the middle, comes the noise. Annoyingly disruptive now that I'm facing it. Like someone's pounding on the metal door from the inside, hoping to get out. Leaning forward, I tried to get a glimpse through the horizontal slots of whatever's causing it. But in this light, only darkness greets me and another round of clanking. Louder than the previous one. More desperate. I've heard stories before. From other schools, from a few colleagues who had to deal with it once or twice. Although personally, I've never encountered one myself, and I can only thank the heavens I haven't. Yet. But
if this is another kid some other student stuffed in a locker.
With a huff, I straighten up and study it briefly with a frown. Without delay, I reach for its handle and at once it stops. Immediately replaced by a muffled sound of a mobile phone ringing. I give the door a few raps before taking my attention away. A second. Another. Then nothing and no one responds. I finally avert my eyes and pull out my mobile. Ashton's voice greets me from the other end of the line, oddly cheerful in light of this morning's matters. Or maybe because I'm just expecting some grave or serious news from him. Instead, I get this.
Hey, Becca.
Well, you sound happy.
I do? My voice still sounds the same to me.
There are only two things I know of that could be the reason for that tone. Sweets, or he's gotten a good lead on his case. From the sounds of it, I'm going to assume it's the former, since lately that case is all that's been running through inside his head. If there's ever a third one, I've never heard of it. Yet. It can only be one of the two.
Ignore that. How's Isabella?
Drove her home a few minutes ago. I think she's sleeping now. Sorry this took a while. Z-Man gave us the puppy eyes after we tried to leave. Had some food prepared for us, apparently. We didn't have the heart to say no.
That's all right. Is she okay now?
I'm not really sure. She didn't say anything to Zach, but she mentioned a plan to take a few days off from work. It was a passing comment before I left her, so I didn't get to ask.
I mean, it makes sense.
Must be because of Rose's death.
Could be. It doesn't seem like it from Zach's story, though. He said she was shaking when she got there.
Shaking?
The word triggers a memory. From 3 days ago, on the way home from her little treat, after she sold the mansion. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I won't lie. It scared me. The terrified look on her face, how she sounded when she suddenly screamed.
Becca? Still there?
Yeah, I just remembered something. Sorry, don't mind me.
Look, if you can talk to her, get the story out of her. That would be great. She wouldn't talk to Zach or me even when I tried. Maybe she'll speak up if it's you.
I'll give it a go, but I can't promise anything, okay? You know how stubborn she can get. But thanks for letting me know about this. If you want, I can get you that ice cream thing you mentioned tonight. As thanks. Just as thanks for all the trouble I've caused today.
Believe me, I'd love to take you up on that offer, but I've got something on my schedule this evening. Maybe some other time? Thanks a lot, Becca.
There's a short pause before he cuts the call from his end, and once again I'm alone with my thoughts. But rather than answers, all I've got from it are questions. More of them, one on top of the other, as if the world isn't planning to give me a break anytime soon. But that's a problem I'll tackle later. Right now, I've got students who need to be taught follies of eavesdropping, if the slightly open door and their smothered laughter from inside is in any indication.
All right, enough eavesdropping. All of you, back to your seats.
Is that your boyfriend, Miss Gales?
None of your business.
He totally is.
Oh, shut up. A quick scuffle follows that comment. If there's a retort prepared at the tip of my tongue, I drop every pretense of letting it loose on them. There's no use arguing with teenagers sometimes, boisterous as they all are. They're still my kids, though. Rough around the edges, maybe, but still my kids. Shaking my head, I head back to my classroom with a smile, but not before taking a glance at the locker again. It hasn't made a sound since.
Oh, must be the wind.
So without another look, I leave it alone. Oh boy. Fuck this game. All in all, the entire school day ends without a hitch. Okay. Worried about her friend's behavior, Rebecca informed Ashton about Isabella's disappearance. It turned out that she spent the night at Zachary's and Ashton offered to pick her up. Rebecca went to school after and had a strange encounter in the hallway with one of the students' lockers. I bet you anything, based on I guess, story elements, I would have had to do a minigame. But seems Ashton saved her. So thank you, Ashton. It could have gone better, mind you. But with the exams nearing, getting out of work before the sun has set looks as though it's a far-off dream for now. At least until they're over. Then we have the holidays to look forward to. There really are times when you simply take what you can get for the time being.
Nothing wrong with that.
All I'm hoping for is this will continue until the whole day ends. There's still that promise I made to Ashton, and frankly, the idea alone doesn't sound good. If Isabella doesn't talk to them, what makes them think she'll talk to me? It's not like there's a hierarchy, is there? Just because I can handle Isabella's childish tendencies doesn't mean I can do it all the time.
Really, those two give me too much credit.
Nevertheless, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, if only because I'm also worried about her. And both Zachary and Ashton deem it important that somebody get the story out of her. Here's to hoping it's got nothing to do with that letter. Again. I understand if she feels a bit stressed lately, but keeping that story going on for more than a week is... It's bound to get tiring at one point. Seriously, I merely don't want this to end in another argument. God willing, the cafe's special will help smoothen things out. After all, it's always been food with her. Or money. But mostly food. At this hour, the cafe is usually filled to the brim with people. That's the reason Isabella and I rarely ever go here during the evenings. It's simply too much of a hassle when we can prepare food ourselves in the comfort of our homes, and there really isn't much reason to eat out lately. What with life going on, a busy streak. No time for long lines. Better spend that doing something productive, yes?
Lucky there isn't one tonight.
Only a few people are idling around the counter. 4 of them, in fact. A woman in her 60s and a teenager busy with his phone. Both are just waiting to be served their orders. The other 2, a posh-looking man and a child, who I immediately recognize as Kylie, appears to have not yet picked anything they want. For some reason, my stare lingers at the guy. Though dressed relatively well and looks harmless, I haven't seen him around these parts before. Someone new in the neighborhood, perhaps? Even so, there's something familiar in him. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. That also begs the question of why Kylie's with him. Of course, the little girl easily takes a liking to anyone who buys her sweets, so it's both a bit worrisome and unsurprising. The blonde bloke doesn't look particularly thrilled with the company, though. I turn my eyes away from them soon enough once the guy at the counter appears ready to take my order. That, and I'd also hate to be accused of strangers.
2, evening special, takeout.
He's already punching the order before I even finish. Saying my order out loud is really more of a formality's sake and made out of habit. He has known Isabella and I long enough that if we ever drop by here, he already knows it's always because I'm buying dinner for the 2 of us. I rarely visit here alone if I can help it, but Isabella can sometimes be a bad influence. He gives me a small smile before leaving to prepare my order, while I fish for my wallet when...
Look, you little ankle biter. If I buy you the biggest parfait they have, will you please behave? I would just like 10 minutes of peace and quiet.
You said you'll get me some bread pudding this time.
Yeah, well, darling, they said they ran out of it. Just pick another one so we can be on our way.
Their parfait doesn't look as cute as the one my mom bought me.
Parfait is just ice cream, sweetheart. It'll melt no matter how dainty it appears. In the end, it'll all look like an ugly puddle. Now come on, just pick one. It could even be the most expensive one on that list. I don't give a shit.
Hey.
Care, I don't care.
Nice.
Oh, what I would give for someone to buy you off my hands right now.
What? My whole attention instantly snaps back to them in their conversation. Jumping to conclusions isn't something I'm particularly fond of, especially when all I have are baseless assumptions. But you can't really trust a stranger these days. No one around the cafe seems to have noticed his words either. Very suspicious words. Still, I don't move. Yet. But my hand has already shifted from my wallet to the book I'm carrying. A hardbound textbook. Looks harmless, but if a situation calls for it, it might be a good deadly weapon. Might. Haven't gotten the chance to try it anywhere so far. Today could be the day.
But you promised!
Look, if you don't want a parfait, how about a Bonifay pie? I'm sure it'll taste just as good as any other bread pudding. I'll even buy you the entire tray. How does that sound?
That's not what you said before.
Well, sweetheart, adults change their minds sometimes.
You said if I come with you, you'll buy me a bread pudding, and I did, and now you won't keep your promise.
Kylie, you can't help it if they don't have it.
I want to go home. I miss my mom.
No, darling, if I remember correctly, and I have a good memory, honey. What I said was, if you come quietly with me, I might buy you one. The quiet part didn't happen.
Wow.
Though now that I'm sober, I think this is a bad idea. And I should just ship you someplace else for that peace and quiet.
Oh, that's it. No hesitation. In a few paces, he's within my reach, and without warning, I slam the flat area of the book against his skull.
Ow!
This cry of pain followed by him instantly crouching down, hands nursing the sore spot. Almost comically, if this were a different situation and the safety of the St. Goretti student isn't at stake, I'd probably feel sorry for him. I mean, has anyone seen how thick this book is?
Get behind me, Kylie.
Miss Pink!
It's amusing how fast her expression changes from the pouty one earlier to something that of utter delight upon seeing me. But there's no time for any pleasantries. Not even quick ones, because soon the man straightens and I'm ready with my favorite newfound weapon for another hit. So this time he's ready, and before I can land another one, his hand shoots up to catch my wrist in a firm hold. And the look on his face...
Bloody hell, woman! What's your problem?
To say he's pissed would be a complete understatement. Had I been the weak-willed sort, I'd probably cower under his sharp gaze. But that simply isn't how I roll. If he thinks he can scare me and do as he pleases here, just because I'm a woman or whatever his reason may be, he's got another thing coming for him. So instead, I return it to him with the same intensity, with the same venom.
What's my problem? You're the one who has a problem here. Rotten bowbags like you don't deserve the freedom to run this town. What are you doing to this girl?
And why is that any of your business, pray tell?
Oh, it's my business if I make it to be. Now, release me or I'll call the police.
Oh, you think that scares me, Daisy?
I have a name, you sleazy douchebag.
Oh, I'm sure.
His grip on my hand only tightens when I attempt to shake it off. His tone may be dripping with anger and sarcasm, but the gleam in his eye says it all. He's getting a kick out of this. Riling people up, getting on their nerves, invading their personal space. He knows exactly what and which buttons to press. The nerve of this person. The nerve of this arsehole. If he thinks I'm going to give in to his goading, please, he might as well just kiss his sorry behind. In fact, why not do the most sensible thing right now? Teach him a tough lesson. I mean, self-defense. I don't approve of it, guys. I really don't. But self-defense, you hit wherever.
Mister, you have until the count of 5 to let me go and step out of my personal space.
He's an asshole. Fair warning. Fairer than any I can offer for people of his kind, and I'm already being considerate. Hell, this arsehole doesn't even deserve a warning. If he doesn't listen, well, he's as much responsible for what will happen next as anyone.
Or else what?
Oh.
Such vulgar words coming out of that pretty mouth. A gorgeous flower like you shouldn't even be saying.
Don't say I didn't warn you, Bowbag.
Love that intensity, Daisy.
You're not gonna be very happy in 2.5 seconds.
FYI, I like feisty in a woman. It gives them this certain charm. Why don't you?
5.
Second of silence. And without any preamble, my leg moves in one fluid motion and delivers a swift, powerful, well-placed kick to his nether regions. And I got an achievement for that.
Oh!
This is to say, the effect is instantaneous. He yelps, abruptly drops his hold on me, and keels over, howling from the pain. I can see tears forming in the corner of his eyes, too, though the mere sight of it prompts not an ounce of remorse from me. I would have been gentler if he wasn't such a dirty little prick with an ego too big for his head. Too bad. Whether this obliterates any chance of him ever procreating remains to be known. But a part of me is already praying he doesn't ever breed after this. We have no need for more of him in this world.
You mad woman!
I warned you, you ass!
Why, this is harassment, I'm telling you! Harassment!
Then why don't you tell that to the police once they get here,
You despicable! Whatever you're assuming I am, I'll have you know it's all in your head. None of it's true. You best have that pretty brain of yours checked before that gets worse. What is wrong with you? Is this the face of someone who'd do anything suspicious?
Yes. Yes, it is, in fact.
Oh? You don't think a stranger, luring an innocent child with promises of sweets before whisking them away from their parents doesn't warrant any suspicion? You have a very funny definition of suspicious, asshole. Maybe you're the one who should have that head of yours checked.
The kid asked me to buy her sweets. You're the one who's suspicious here. I'll have you know, I have a wife!
Oh God, and I pity the fool. That much, at least, appears to have a sliver of truth to it. He even makes a show of brandishing his left hand to my face with much flourish. Sure enough, a wedding ring is there, though all that earned him is an unimpressed glare from me. Immediately, a small part of me starts to feel sorry for whatever poor woman married this sod. I don't understand why he has to bring her up either. As if the mention of her alone will magically present a solution to his problems. She must truly be a remarkable woman if she can handle a dirtbag like him.
And even my wife of all people in this bloody city, has never, I'm telling you, accused me of such a scandalous thing! You crazy woman!
Married or not, you're still a sleaze. Honestly, I feel...
Miss Pink, why are you fighting with my teal?
And the kid finally speaks. Whatever word's still left to be said here dies on my tongue. Same thing goes for the sleaze. Beside us stands Kylie, gawking at us with that same curious stare she often brings with her. I know that look all too well. A precocious child through and through. She doesn't say anything further. Her gaze simply moves between us, eyeing us both carefully, clearly anticipating an answer. From my experience, when it gets like this with children her age, it's a sure sign they won't leave you until you're giving them an answer they're satisfied with. Lying won't do either. It has dissolved into a shouting match for head's sake. And did she just say Tio? Something falls straight into the pit of my stomach at that. And my tone is gentle when I finally address her, void of any apprehension and what might be the first hints of embarrassment. I pointedly ignore the latter. It can very well be just the hunger speaking.
Kylie, sweetie, do you know this oath?
Yeah, he's Teal Loot.
Right at that moment, my brain stops. Every line of thought, every argument I still have against the man beside me dissipates in a haze. Amidst all of it, one memory gets triggered from a few days ago.
Tio? The one you mentioned before? The uncle? The guy Rowan wanted to impress? Or was that a dare?
Oops.
I'm sorry, I can't recall.
Well, it's a good time to save anyway, so.
Is it the one who promised he'll take Big Brother someplace cool?
Yeah, the one and the same! Don't you know who he is?
I sure as hell don't, darling. Because if I do, I wouldn't have let everything I've said earlier come out of my mouth.
He's my T.O. Luke. Gazillionaire extraordinaire, am I? No, the fairy godfather.
He's your godfather. That's nice.
The one and only. Did I get that right, T.O.?
More than right, sweetheart. I'm sure Miss Pink here understood everything you said quite perfectly.
Whatever it is that landed at the bottom of my stomach prior has shot straight up to my face and stayed there. The heat from it slowly spreading to my cheeks, coloring my face in almost the same shade as my hair. If only the earth would swallow me whole here and now. His eyes are on me. I can feel them jeering, mocking. Can't even bring myself to look at him. What's in there? Amusement? I doubt it. He's probably having the time of his life right now. But I know. I can hear the sneer in his tone alone when he talks. He has that smug grin on him, which I may or may not want to punch off his face at present, just for the hell of it. But damage control. I have to apologize to him. I mean, I did assault him. Though it pains me to apologize to a sleazebag like him, this is my mistake. With Kylie watching us close by, I don't want to set a bad example for her, do I? Yep. I'm surprised she grew up the child she is. If anything, I want to be the role model this man couldn't possibly come from her. Even if it means taking a few blows to my ego and stroking his insufferable one. A deep gulp of air, a short moment to swallow my self-respect, and then I'm facing him. The words are out of my mouth in a single breath.
I'm really, really sorry, sir. I had no idea.
His smirk is impossible to miss. He's not making an effort to hide it, and even the smile is so irritatingly present in his tone. If I could slap it off of him, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Now, it's an honest mistake, Daisy.
No, I really mean it. I actually thought you were... And then...
It's fine now. It probably happens quite a lot to a few people who look suspicious to you. Seems I'm one of them now. But don't lose sleep over it.
Fucking hate you, Luke.
Do be careful with that book, though. A little more and you would have dislodged my poor brain off my head. What would I ever do if that happens?
Oh, no! Did it leave a mark or anything? If you want, we can have it checked. I'll handle the expenses if there's a need for it.
Now, what kind of man would I be if I let an attractive woman such as yourself do that? Why don't we just look at it this way? My forgiveness is coming from the utter goodness of my heart.
I'm sure it is, asshole. So full of himself. Exactly the kind of person I'll happily leave to die in a ditch somewhere.
Of course, sir. Why didn't I think of it that way?
I know, right? But even someone as capable as you is bound to have a few lapses. No harm done, Daisy. Let's move on from this.
Well, if you're going to put it like that, then I guess there's nothing left for us to talk about.
I figured as much.
Awkward. The whole exchange is nothing but an awkward display of fake pleasantries. One that brings much agony to the very pride I'm willingly held back a while ago. I might need a drink later so I can forget any of this ever happened. Who would have thought that the time would come when I'd meet someone tougher to handle than Isabella? Miracles of miracles, I swear. Though to my surprise, he proffers me a hand shortly before we leave. For a shake, I realize, after a long minute of staring at it. I accept it, albeit half-heartedly. But all of the goodwill that small gesture represents melts into thin air when he winks at me. Winks. The girl of this man! However, there's no moment to ponder about it. Seconds later, the guy at the counter waves me over and hands me a paper bag as soon as I paid. He offers me another smile before I leave. Normally, I return it for the sake of returning it, or I don't at all, the latter happening more commonly. For the time being, I do so freely. After that encounter and the scene we've caused, seeing a friendly gesture being extended to me, albeit from a person I barely know on a personal level, it feels like a reassurance, despite bearing no promise for better days. I take what little I can of it, with me as I step out into the night. Okay, I gotta see what it says. Yeah. Yes! While lining up to buy dinner, Rebecca saw Kylie Suarez with a suspicious man. Assuming it was a kidnapping, Rebecca elected to take the matter into her own hands, only to find out that the man was the girl's godfather, Luke Wright. And embarrassed Rebecca apologized afterwards. Because if you do something wrong, doesn't really matter what the intentions were when you did something that was wrong. You still did something wrong. And you always apologize when you do something wrong. Cloudless night sky greets me when I walk out of the cafe. Beyond the tall buildings, a blanket of stars spreads out before me. Isabella once told me that the best place to view it is somewhere outside the city, away from the noise and the intrusive lights. She'd seen it once in her mum's hometown and another time in the university she used to attend. Then she asked if it's possible to try it out here for some time. I agreed with her at the time, if only because she appeared excited at the mere prospect of it. We made those little plans along with Zachary and Ashton, though up until now, we've never got around to it. Even so, I find myself enjoying this, despite being told it's only half the experience. Little things, you know. Stuff you learn to appreciate when you're alone. Because at certain times you get to meet people who are unfortunately born with the innate talent to ruin the mood and the scene with their mere existence alone. For example, the very driver of the car fast approaching my direction. Luckily, he doesn't notice me. But the fleeting moment we pass each other by gives me a brief glance at the people he's with. Kylie sitting in the back seat, with a serving of bread pudding in her hands. And beside him, it must be his wife. Nope, that was not his wife. He takes a turn and disappears at the nearest corner. But throughout the night, that cursory glimpse of all things to bother me has left me wondering what kind of a person his wife is. And, more than that, is a silent prayer to the universe. I hope I don't ever cross paths with that douche again. After having such an eventful day, anyone will think nothing will surprise me anymore. But here I am, standing at the top of the stairwell, watching an odd scene unfold before me. Relief crosses my mind first, followed by confusion.
What is she doing there?
Although given what happened this morning, the question feels a bit inappropriate to ask directly. What's important is Isabella is here. She's sitting cross-legged on the hallway, just right in front of her room, with several papers and folders scattered about. Each of them seems as important as the next. More than once, upon giving the scene a quick glance, I spot Briar Realty's logo at the topmost area of the pages. This is her doing research. Everything's considered. It looks like a mess made by a third grader working on crunch time. The landlady will have a few things to say about this when she finds out. I have a few things to say about it myself, in fact. But something in the calm, focused manner she holds herself at present keeps me from disturbing her with that reminder. She's going through each paper with this intensity. Her brows are furrowed, lips are tight-lined, both hands moving in precise movements as she sifts through each sheet. When she finds something of note, she moves closer, nose almost touching whatever paper she's holding, and grabs her phone to call someone.
Hello. Sorry to call you this late. There's something I just want to confirm, if that's okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks anyway. Not that one either.
It's a cycle. She goes through call after call, then after the last one ends, she shuffles through the pile again and dials another number. Is it work? I've never seen her this engrossed with her own work before. Otherwise, she would have noticed my presence the moment I reached our floor. After the 9th call, she still appears as oblivious to it as when I arrived. When she lets out a loud sigh this time, I immediately take that as an opportunity to interrupt.
Isabella, you know the house rules here.
At once her head jerks up. and hits the concrete wall behind her with a thump. There's the Isabella I know. Glad it's still there. I allow her a moment to nurse it before speaking again.
Becca, you're late.
Yeah, I ran into a little trouble at the cafe. But I brought food for the two of us, if you haven't eaten anything yet.
As anticipated, she grins once I raise the bag of food I'm holding. Yet it doesn't reach her eyes. There's nothing of the cheerful glint in it this time. Just a hollow tone for the sake of being polite. Ashton's right. Something's happened.
Yeah, maybe later. I've got to finish this first. Just leave it here. I'll eat it once I'm done. Thanks, Becca.
You can't eat this here. You know how the landlady would react. Why are you even working outside? Your room's right there.
I know. Sorry. It just feels stuffy in my apartment right now. I'll go back inside once everything's been aired out. I promise.
That has never bothered you before.
Well, it bothers me now.
Oh, really? Just now? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah? Shouldn't you be happy? I mean, you've been complaining even if it's not your room. Now I know how you're feeling when it's messy, so I'm going to clean. Isn't that a good thing?
In spite of what's supposed to be good news, an exhale comes from me, drawn out and slow.
It's a good thing, Isabella. Believe me. But you're as bad as Zachary at lying. What's really going on?
She hastily averts her eyes, a surefire indicator that this is going to be one of those lengthy conversations that can possibly end with the other person angry. Again, it's one thing I'd like to avoid tonight at all costs. Still, I've made a promise to Ashton and Zachary. If she didn't talk to them, who else is she going to talk to? If she keeps this all to herself, who knows what might happen?
Isabella, you can tell me. I listened that one time, didn't I? Is it about your family?
A slight movement of her lips. Although a frown, it's a reaction at least. I'm getting there.
Rose?
She merely shakes her head. Just a little more.
Come on, I know something happened. I don't know if it's because of Rose, but I know it's related to her somehow. You weren't here when I visited this morning, and both Zachary and Ashton are worried about you. If you don't want to tell them, you can tell me. Does it have something to do with work? Office?
If I didn't know her, I might have missed it. She shifts then, her fists clenched tight and teeth biting her lower lip, and there's fear. The look of terror in her is the last thing I expected to see out of everything. Her mouth trembles briefly before she opens them. When she finally voices it out, the words simply spill out of her mouth. One after another. All of it. True to what I promised her, I listened. Because this is something she's been keeping to herself, even from the two most dependable people I know. The fact she chooses to tell me this speaks a lot to me.
Becca, she was there again. Last night? In the office? Boss passed me all of Rose's workload yesterday. For the Ermengarde Mansion. I had to stay late to finish them all. And then, when I was about to go home, I saw her. I saw her again. She was standing in front of me again last night, Becca. I couldn't get away. She was blocking the door. If I hadn't hidden myself, even if I made the tiniest noise, if she found me.
Yep, she would have killed her. We saw it from the game over screen.
Becca, she almost did. If she saw me under my table, I think that would have been the end of it. I'm scared. I'm so scared I won't be able to do anything.
By the end, her hands are trembling and her breathing comes out in rasping intervals. For a long moment, I let the silence stretch out between us, let her sobs fill it instead. But even as her soft whimpers die down minutes later, there's a heaviness hanging in the air. Not just from her, but also from me. Tell her you have seen the girl too. For my exasperation over this whole matter. For my own frustrations over her stupid superstitions when she could do us all a favor and grow a backbone. She may be young, but she's no longer that young. It's about time to put an end to this. She can't keep going on like this. She's still got plenty of years to live out. And what if she goes home? What if we're no longer there to keep her fears in line with what's real? What would she do then? I'm more afraid for her, for what that kind of imagination would do to her than of what some imaginary monster could. But with the manners she's looking at me right now, there's an expectation in it, a hope and a plea sewn together. She wants me to believe her this time. If it's like that, then what am I supposed to say now? What she wants to hear, or what she needs to hear. Be kind. Nice. And we've got Isabella maxed out. And Rebecca is maxed out for Isabella as well. Sweet. As much as I want to set her straight, a reprimand isn't what she needs right now. With that pouty face she's giving me, I doubt it'll even end well if I push it. I know her. When she wants to be stubborn, she's stubborn. But there are moments when she can be acquiescing too. Times when she'll be more accepting of what I tell her, despite her inclination to disagree with it. That talk can wait. In the meantime, I'll be the ear that listens to her without judging her, without criticizing her, despite my own opinions on it.
You should have called me.
She stares at me like I've grown another head, and a laughter slips out before I can stop myself.
There? I can't do that! What will you do? Hit her with a book? You'll be dead before that happens. And...
That isn't what I'm talking about. After you got out, you should have phoned me. You didn't have to go to Zachary's.
Corners of her mouth curl up. A sheepish smile by general definition. But this is Isabella. Her smiles are never half-hearted, never lacking her high spirits. In spite of this, I know everything's going to be okay. Somehow. After all, she's learned how to pick herself up long ago. Long before we met.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I don't even remember how I ended up in Zach's place. I was in a hurry to get out of the office, and it was already late. Besides, I don't really think you'll believe me if I wake you up over something like that.
That's beside the point. True or not, there are people who will always be concerned about you. There's Zachary, but he's the first person you went to, and you didn't tell him anything. You just slept there. There's Ashton too, and me. But how do you think I'll be able to explain to your aunt or your family if you suddenly disappeared? Think about that.
Right. I'll remember that next time.
Then she grins. Playful and mischievous, a preamble to an old banter. It's still not quite there. Still not quite her usual self, but with it, I know we're bound to get her back soon.
Mom!
I told you not to call me that.
I send an elbow to her side for added measure, but when laughter follows the familiar gesture, none of it is unexpected. This is what's comfortable. This is how we found an equal ground despite our stark differences. So for the moment, I accept things as they are. Afterwards, a hush stretches out before us. For Isabella, this is rare. This isn't her. Yet, in this moment, as she fiddles with the edge of another paper near her, as she hugs her knees close to herself and lets a pensive expression linger on her, it feels strangely fitting. As if this is where everything's supposed to lead to if we allowed it long ago. Seconds later, the moment is broken by the sound of a door easing open and a voice begging some little peace.
How many times have I told you girls not to loiter around the hallway? It's noisy. Some people here are trying to sleep. Quiet down or go do your talking inside. I'm pinning a memo to your door the next time this happens.
Ooh.
Millennials.
Ouch.
Sorry. We won't do it again.
You'd better.
Door closes and Isabella starts gathering the mess she's made, carefully stacking them all in her arm. At a loss for what to do, I help her pick them up. For the first time, I get a closer look at it. Completely unintentional, of course. But it catches my attention nevertheless, and a confused frown makes its way to my face. Why is she looking through this? I look to her for an explanation, but she merely ignores the question in my eyes, takes the paper out of my hands, and finishes cleaning up. The last paper she puts on top is a letter. The one she's supposedly found in the mansion, and what's probably the root cause of all of this odd behavior. I shoot her a questioning look for that too. But all she gives me is a smile. And in a halting tone, so completely unlike her.
Becca, I'll find a way out of this. You guys don't have to worry about me. Anyways, I should go. I'll see you later.
Where are you going?
Getting myself some food. Don't wait for me.
I brought food? Isabella walks away before I can stop her, before I can remind her I brought food enough for the both of us. She quickly disappears down the stairwell, while I'm left standing in the empty hallway holding 2 bags of takeout. One of them will go uneaten tonight. Just an innocent passing thought. One that I don't dwell too much on as I head back to my room. I ignore all of it in the same way I've assumed I won't ever encounter that douche again. Nice, they made up. Rebecca found Isabella going through several papers outside their apartment. When the former asked why she didn't come home the other night, the latter confessed that she saw the ghost once again. Before leaving, Isabella assured her friend that she'd find a way out of this mess.